And we are officially back live, streaming on not only Sportscaster, but also YouTube for our special draft night coverage. Very excited as we come in, obviously, on what is going to be a big night, not just for the New York Football Giants, but for everyone around the league. A very different, very unique situation that we find ourselves in, obviously. We're talking about a fully virtual draft taking place for the NFL, as they try to do things in a safe way, but also make it possible for all these teams to make their selections. And we will now get ready to invite in our co-host, obviously not just on the One Giant podcast, but on all things New York Football Giants. In comes Andy Mackiewicz, sir. Welcome into the show. We don't even have to tell anybody that you were having technical difficulties before we started. Maybe we still are. Look, Andy's a no-show, frozen, stoic as he's ever been. We'll see if Andy gets himself sorted out there for a minute. Let him try to reboot back in. In the meantime, let's set the table. If you joined us on the podcast episode that we dropped this morning, we obviously know that the Giants come into this with a lot of speculation around the idea that offensive line is the way they're going to go. If you think about this draft, and for the Giants in the top of the list there, offensive tackle, you have Wirfs, you have Willis, you have Thomas, and you also have Becton. Now, the weird thing about some of these players is you think about a guy like Wirfs, who arguably everyone says, kick him inside, let him be a dominant guard for you. However, if you allow the opportunity for him to play on the outside, what will his future look like? Let's try to get Andy back in here again.
Got the intro before. I'm excited to be on with everybody. How's everything going with you?
It's going fantastic, Andy. I was just starting to highlight with the people about how obviously we know Giants are looking at that offensive line class, highlighting how some of these linemen, when you look at them, have seen a burst from the combine. A guy like Wirfs obviously rings a bell there. And then some guys seemingly haven't done anything to damage their stock, like Thomas, but have fallen back a little bit. You know, throwing a name like Becton there as well. These are guys that have come, you know, Becton surged up the board and now seems to be falling back into that middle of the first round. Before we get into some broad stroke stuff, just quickly on what feels like maybe the Giants target here at the top of the draft, what is your sense with all that movement that we see from them? Well, see, listen, this is the problem with live technology, friends. We'll wait to see if Andy sorts himself out. In the meantime, we'll say that Wirfs is that one who's risen. Becton is a great example. You talk about a player who, from the combine, running that 40 time that he did with that much weight and size. The concerns you have with him, and from a Giants fan perspective, you're talking about that Eric Flowers syndrome, right? Think about a guy who you really had all of these athletic characteristics, all these skill sets that you were excited to bring in, and yet the concern is, can you develop it, right? And the Giants took Flowers early in the first round. He seems to have found a home now later, a few years into his career, kicking inside to guard. And that's all fine and well, but Becton has the concerns about being athletic and needing development. He also has maybe some potentially some back issues when you think about carrying that much weight, his size. So these aren't red flags, but they're minor concerns that you may have with a player like Becton as you think about investing a high draft pick. Willis is another one that's a great example because at college he plays on the right side, but that's because that's the blind side for his quarterback. Everyone agrees you can kick him around to left. The question mark will be, does the nature of this offseason with COVID-19 looming, does that impact his ability to get over to that left side and start to develop that skill set, refine himself over there? And if you're the Giants, do you think we bring in a player like this, how quickly do we want to move him over to left tackle? Are we going to give him a year on the right side and then make the switch in the next offseason? We highlighted Wirfs there as well. And then Thomas, listen, from my perspective, it's difficult to look at a guy like that who came into the offseason as the number one ranked tackle on the board, obviously has that experience at left tackle at the college level, didn't do anything to hurt himself at the combine, and yet has found himself dropping down the board in terms of the hierarchy of these tackles. Potentially, you'll see an opportunity here for the Giants to maybe be able to kind of get the player that they'd be really happy with while still trading down a handful of spots. If and when Andy Mackiewicz gets in the door here with us, we'll start to take a look at the idea of where some of these trade values fall for the Giants, some of the chatter that's happening around the picks in and around us, above us. They just announced that all the mild speculation, the the Cincinnati Bengals are going Burrow at the number 1 pick, so there's a little bit of a lack of drama there, as often happens when you're talking about a quarterback going high in a draft and a QB needy team sitting at the number 1 overall selection. But we'll have to wait and see what that looks like for them as this draft unfolds, and if some knocks come on the door. What is Dave Gettleman potentially going to consider doing there at the top of the draft? Andy Mackiewicz.
Adam, there's so many people in my development getting online, trying to look at all the trade rumors, seeing what's going on with the draft. It's been difficult, but we are back now.
All right, so I covered the offensive line situation right now. Let's dive into what you were talking about before we started, and that's some of the discussions that are happening right now, right? Officially, Bengals are taking Burrow. That's come out. That's not really a shock. But What about maybe at that number 3 pick, the Detroit Lions, starting to hear some rumors about what they may be willing to do?
Yeah, so first thing is, and Adam should have to report this, but in case anyone doesn't follow him and loves football, he said that the owner of the Bengals earlier this week sent an actual letter through the mail to Joe Burrow welcoming him to the family. So at that point, clearly, it doesn't matter what anyone's trying to trade. When an owner gets it in his head that he loves a quarterback, there's not enough draft picks to be able to pry him away. You know,
is that endearing if you're Joe Burrow that you get a letter in the mail, or is that almost more concerning?
It's from a billionaire. Of course, if a billionaire is going to write you like a handwritten letter, like how could you not love that? Like you got to feel, you're 20 years old, you're getting a handwritten letter from a billionaire. Like how cool is that, right?
So I might have gone with some type of telegram, singing telegram, perhaps. Just really take it old school.
Old school, love the old school. That's how those billionaires work that own all these teams. But the latest rumor that's come out is more around Vegas lines and betting, which I find fascinating. Every single mock draft that I've seen over the last 3 weeks has basically just penciled Jeff Okudah into the Detroit Lions at number 3. And all the betting sites have suggested, his over-under has been about 2.5, 3.5 in terms of where he's going to get selected. It has just jumped up to 4.5 or 5 on some Vegas betting sites on where they think he's going to go. And that's a clear indication that the Lions are moving out of this pick or are not enamored with Okudah, because Vegas doesn't just move these lines, willy-nilly. It's literally something has happened where it hasn't been reported yet, but the Lions are definitely thinking they're going to be moving back.
So now one of these other scenarios that I was picking up on online as well is they mentioned the idea that Miami could be coming up to 3. So Detroit could be trading with Miami, but it also listed the Giants there. The situation that I assume they're leaning towards in that scenario is that you're talking about a guy like Simmons, who Detroit would be happy to take at 3 possibly, and that the Giants, in fact, maybe want him, and they don't, they're saying, if Detroit's going to sit there and take Simmons, we better move up in order to secure the linebacker that we desire. Meanwhile, Miami is talking about possibly moving up for the quarterback of their choice, but I don't see that necessarily being realistic, because Miami, for all intents and purposes, can put at 5 and still accomplish what they want, right?
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea, like we said it on the podcast, the last 24 to 48 hours before the draft is just smoke screens all over the place. Everyone is just giving misinformation, because why would you ever tell anyone that you really like someone? Then they have leverage over you. So, the Dolphins moving up and them saying they're trying to get in front of the Giants for an offensive tackle is ridiculous. No one ever really does that. They're clearly looking to move up, and it sounds like, even though they've said, oh, we don't like Tua, we don't know what's going on with Tua, they are trying to move up to get Tua. You don't make all of these free agent acquisitions. You don't start building a roster the way that they have to dote out Ryan Fitzpatrick for 16 games, right? Like he's a great bridge, but they are getting their number 1 quarterback. They have the assets to do it, and they are going to go get him early if it is Tua.
Okay, so let's play this out, though. If the Miami Dolphins want to move up to make sure they secure their quarterback, and they're concerned, obviously, about the LA Chargers being their competition there. This is something that we talked about on the podcast at one point. I said, if there's a leapfrog position that you want to get to, Detroit kind of becomes that one, because you can swap up with the Giants to 4, and then the Chargers can come right in behind you, make a maneuver with the Detroit Lions, and secure the 3rd overall pick. So this is a scenario that we talked about where the Giants could end up still sitting there at 4, and just having their choice of who they want to take, but that all of a sudden they kind of get out of this trade market dance. If that's the case, do you think that it changes anything in terms of what the Giants are thinking? I had mentioned that I had talked to Scott Mason, and he had, you can throw this out there. I'm not saying I want the Giants to do it, but Okudah is widely regarded as being a top 5 talent in this draft and a lockdown corner of the future. Does this mess with the Giants at all at the 4th overall selection?
Adam, you know what? There's a couple things that are going on here. One is the big challenge is the Giants would love to get Chase Young. That's not any secret for anybody, right? They're not going to trade. The Redskins aren't going to trade with the Giants just because they're not going to trade in the division. What you need to have happen for the Giants to get Chase Young is you need 2 teams that are enamored with 2 different other quarterbacks than Joe Burrow, right? It can't just be 2 teams love Tua and they're fighting to move up. We need someone that loves Tua and loves Justin Herbert and wants to make sure that they get their franchise quarterback. That doesn't look like it's going to happen. To me, and this is something that we talked about offline, I truly believe that Justin Herbert is going to have one of those egg on the face drops 15, 20 spots when it's all said and done, which doesn't bode well for the Giants at 4, which I think is one of the challenges that we see here. Now, if this all happens, the offensive tackle position, I think the Giants are I think they're locked into either Simmons or an offensive tackle. I just hope they make the right choice and just take Andrew Thomas and move on.
Maybe it'll be Derek Brown, though. You never know. No, I apologize. I did it on the podcast to you. I'm not going to do it to you again here. I think the other angle, from a Dolphins perspective as well, is that one of these 2 teams could be, and Dolphins could maybe are the more logical idea here. They have 3 selections in the first round. To your point, if Herbert's going to be dropping in this draft class, if you're the Dolphins and you want to ramp up the speculation that 2 is your guy, and the Chargers feel compelled to make the move, the Dolphins could be the beneficiary of just hanging out, letting the draft unfold, and when they pick later in the first round at either one of those extra picks that they have, they can end up getting a guy like Herbert potentially if they wanted to and get a lot of value without having to sacrifice assets to maybe move around the board. I'm so curious about it, and I know that the smoke screens that go on right now are tricky, but I don't wholeheartedly believe that there is a real battle here between the Dolphins and the Chargers. I don't know if it actually exists or not.
Adam, is there anything that Justin Herbert does better than Tua? Honestly, I've watched a lot of film. I'm trying to figure this out. He has the size, he has the acumen, the Wonderlic test scores. I get that. But is there any actual film or is there any statistics? Because it's not QBR, it's not completion percentage, it's not touchdown to interception. What does he do? Is the only thing that he stays healthy? Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess arguably that's the case, and maybe that's again the case for why either one of these teams, they may have interest in him. And Tua obviously represents, when 100% healthy, a product that you want to have, a player that you want to have on your team. But maybe that's again why one of these 2 teams can make the case that we like this guy, we feel comfortable with him, we're building for the future. Whereas Herbert is maybe just suffering from that idea of, man, you're only in this battle or this race for QB because one of you has dealt with a serious injury over the past 8 months or what have you. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. One of the people that we'll be inviting in here in just a moment, runner of one of the big old fan groups over there on Facebook. So we're gonna have Patrick Littleton. He's gonna hop in here hopefully in the next couple of minutes to give his hopes for the 4th overall pick and maybe just the draft in general.
Adam,
yeah,
I know you were talking about the offensive line before. I want to give people an update too. Obviously, I'm a Vegas guy. We talk about a lot of the lines. One of the things I found interesting, and this is something we talked about a month ago, is when we started getting into the draft stuff, we both fell in love with Andrew Thomas. I think there's no secret on the show that we love him. I have him ranked as my number 1 offensive tackle out of the top 4 if we're going to consolidate it for the top end of the draft. Back when we, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, started saying that we loved Andrew Thomas, him to be the first offensive tackle taken in the draft was plus 850. And that means if you were to put $100 down, you'd win $850. So they really kind of had him as a long shot. He was actually the 4th of the 4 top guys, with Wills being first. Now, while the order has changed around a little bit, Becton has dropped with some of the news about his drug tests and some of the other stuff that's happened. Andrew Thomas is now going off at 3-1 to be the first offensive tackle taken. And, like I said, Vegas always seems to know what's going on. They've moved from, plus 850 down to 300, and now Andrew Thomas is kind of in that range. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, they're not hedging. They're not moving these numbers down just for the heck of it. They're clearly hearing something, right?
Well, it makes sense too, because again, I heard that Vegas sends their information via letter, just like the owner of the Bengals. So the draft is in Vegas. Obviously, it's going to send it out from in there at the mecca of this draft. I hope that it's true, because honestly, and you know what, I think about last draft, right? And everyone can say out of your mind, you could have had Daniel Jones at the later selection in the first round, whatever the case may be. This could be, if Vegas does have the inside track on things, as they tend to do, I would like to think that this is them saying, what we have is a beat on the fact that the Giants have always liked Thomas. That was the guy that they'd like to go with. If they could trade down, they'd love to. But if they sat there at 4 and it's their time to make the selection, they're going to be more than happy to go, yeah, Thomas is our guy. And you can tell us that Wirfs has risen up or that Wills is a better option, etc. But this is the guy that we thought, this is what we thought coming into the combine. Nothing changed after the combine. We're happy with him, and we'll move on with the rest of our draft. Ideally, you'd still like to see them make that couple of slots slide back down the draft and grab that extra asset, because in terms of the overall draft picture for the Giants, we obviously know we want to fill that hole from 40, from 36 to 99, second to third round.
Well, Adam, that's the one of the hot rumors that's going on Twitter, and whether or not that has any substance to it. Some people, some Giants beat reporters are saying that there are sources that are confirming that this is an ongoing talk, but they're talking about the Jaguars sitting at number 9. And we've talked about trying to get Yannick Ngakoue. Like, let's just put that to bed. That's definitely not happening, especially with Leonard Williams signing his franchise tag. Yannick is not coming to the Giants. So we can just rest assured, let all Giant fans know he will not be a New York Giant in the next 24 hours, probably in the next ever, right?
Done himself no favors by the way that he's kind of handled that situation. And I'm not saying that he's not justified to do it because he doesn't want to be there, but the way that he's gone about it on social media does not send out the idea of hey, I'm a pro. I want to get this resolved. I understand it's a process. Instead, he's just been like, come on, Jags, what's your deal? And then shouting out other teams and be like, come get me, and all that kind of nonsense. I think that hurts.
The starting owner is the VP of player personnel, and he's calling him a clown on Twitter. You get if you really he's trying to make it so toxic that they're we literally cannot have him in the building anymore. But the Jaguars are playing chicken with him. They're like, you're under contract. You're going to play for $18 million. You're not going to sit out. You've never made a big paycheck in your life. But let me digress away from Yannick a little bit and just talk about the rumor that's going on is, the Jacksonville Jaguars are sitting at 9 right now. The Giants are sitting at 4. The trade chart says that it could take about a first-round pick to get up, in terms of points to equal the value. The Jaguars, I think, are dangling the 42nd pick in the second round, which to me, it doesn't feel like enough. But at the same time, if we can trade back and get an offensive tackle that we like and pick up an extra second-round pick, it fills the hole between our compensatory pick and our second-round pick. But what are your thoughts about 4 for 9 and 42 from the Jaguars?
Once upon a time in these mock drafts, you were getting the 20th pick from the Jaguars to come up. Now, I think that that's based on the idea that they're coming up for a quarterback potentially. I don't know how that works behind the scenes, whereas when you're communicating, right, and say it's the Dolphins or the Chargers or a team that wants a QB, if you're going to come to get your franchise quarterback, then it becomes more costly to make that move. If behind closed doors, Gettleman is speaking with the Jaguars and they're saying, maybe we want to come to get Okudah, right? Maybe we want to replace Ramsey, and we really like him, and we're not going to be able to get him at 9 because Carolina might take him, right? Someone could maybe go for him, and we want to make sure we secure him. That could devalue the number of assets that you need to come to get him. I honestly, again, if I feel like I can still get Thomas, and I would take Wills as well, I'd be comfortable with that. I think that Wirfs, you're talking about a little bit of a different dynamic there in terms of where you want him over the length of his career, as far as fixing left tackle primarily. If I feel comfortable that I can still get the tackle at 9, there's something about saying, all right, so I also grab the 9th pick in the second round as well. All of a sudden, the flexibility to do something that I know you and I have agreed for the most part on in terms of when you want to take a center. But now you do give yourself flexibility to say at the top of the second, we have this choice of we could get the center and not sacrifice getting another position of need because we have 2 selections there. We can package those up and dive back into the first round if we want to for a specific player that we want to target. We can trade down out of one of those picks and still get some third round assets. So flexibility, certainly. Maybe I would want to see the Jaguars kick in something additionally, as small as it may seem, a 4th rounder or something that we could then, again, move around the board a little bit. So I might want to try to squeeze a little more out of them.
Yeah, I think if we're not getting that second first round pick, the 42nd pick is a good pick, but it's not necessarily equitable with what I think we're giving up. The 4th pick is a very valuable pick. I think the top 5 pick in the draft is huge. They say you hope every time with the top 5 pick, you're getting a guy that can wear a gold jacket, right? That is a very important pick. There's a couple other rumors flying around for Giant fans that I think are important to address. Obviously, the Jaguars is one. Another one is the Giants have been linked with San Francisco on multiple opportunities, right? And, we talked a little bit on the podcast about Evan Ingram potentially for that back end late first round pick. I don't know if that's necessarily something that's still floating around. They said the Giants may throw their 4th round pick. That's one. The second one that's kind of popped up is the San Francisco 49ers are thinking about moving on from Dee Ford, who they picked up from the Kansas City Chiefs. He signed for another 4 years at roughly $15 million a year, and is an outside linebacker that brings pressure. Over the last 2 seasons, he's had 19 and a half sacks, almost 20 sacks. They're talking about Dee Ford, Evan Ingram, maybe a late pick involved just to make some things work. Where are you on that idea?
And was that in the 31st overall pick? Is that on swaps or just straight up and then some assets involved?
It's Dee Ford, Evan Ingram, and maybe I don't even know which way they're talking. The Giants may give a 6th round pick on top.
I was like, well, my head's spinning here. I can get I'm thinking of a 1st round pick plus Dee Ford. Excuse me, while I get myself to calm down here. The tricky part about that, again, it's probably the same thing about Yannick, right? Bringing in a talent, but knowing it's going to cost you money now. I think with the Giants and their cap space and Leonard Williams signing the franchise tag, you're in a bit of a hard spot to bring in that high of a salary cap hit that you're locked into. Now, theoretically, if you could make the money work and then you could move on from Leonard Williams after a franchise tag season, you'd free up, 16, 17 million going into next off season. But I just don't see how the Giants could make that work right now, unless you're talking about some other players, like potentially a Golden Tate maneuver that loosens up some cap space.
Well, let me hit you with a couple of different statistics around this and why I think Giant fans and Twitter is ablaze on being interested in this.
And I would like to have Dee Ford.
Dee Ford, 29 years old, premier pass rusher, averaging 10 sacks over the last couple of seasons. Great. The couple extra stats are this year he's only, I think his salary is $13.5 million. So it's not as high as it can get or it balloons to. If you cut him this year, his dead cap is huge. But what happens is if you get him for this year, he's making $13.5 million. Evan Ingram's on what, $4.5 million. So we're talking about an $8 million difference right out of the gate. The second thing is if the Dee Ford situation doesn't work out, his dead cap hit for next year, even though he's making 15 or 16 million, is only $4 million. So, when you're talking about making a trade, you're talking about a 29-year-old outside linebacking pass rusher, fits our 3-4 scheme. If we're looking to move on from Evan Ingram because we've got, some good tight ends in the building already, it starts to make a lot of sense for the Giants to at least consider it, right?
Yeah, well, you know what? 'Cause I was going to say, well, then you're talking about if it doesn't work out, so now you're doing a 1-year rental and you're giving up Ingram and maybe a 6th round pick. But the flip side of that is, as we've talked about, Evan Ingram is a guy that's going to cost you $10 million when he hits free agency. And if you're not looking to pay that price tag, you're talking about maybe you're just getting value. I'm just getting value in the door for this year, taking it off offensive value for defensive value and then saying, yeah, next year we're going to be in the same kind of spot potentially. And you can still keep Dee Ford around, by the way.
And it's also financial stability, right? Like what you're saying makes complete sense. It might even be 11 or 12 million by the time Evan Ingram needs to sign. Like that might be the going rate for a top 10 tight end, top 15 tight end in the league that's a free agent, right? But with D Ford, you get some consistency where you say, we have a guy at $15 million a year from age 29 to 34. Pass rushers maybe start losing things around 32, 33, but who knows? But at least we can project out that we have this asset under control. And if we want to get rid of it, rid of D Ford, it's only going to cost us $4 million in dead cap space. So that consistency and continuity of knowing how much it's going to cost to have a pass rusher like that under control for 4 years is actually really valuable, as opposed to, like you said, Evan Ingram. If we pick up his 5th-year option, like, we're going to have to sign him to a long-term deal, or he's just going to walk. And are we willing to pay $12 million a year for him?
And this is, listen, I don't take any pleasure in being on the we should move on from Ingram camp, because as a player, as a person, he's never done anything to make you think that you don't want him to be a part of your team over the long term. It's just the reality of injuries combined with where he is in his contract and what it's going to cost. It just feels like you're moving towards this space of having him leave and not receiving any return value. So from that, there's a lot. I guess there's a lot of factors that go into it. I'll be curious to see if anything happens with that now. It feels like Ingram is also the kind of guy where I'm hard pressed to buy too deep into some of these rumors right now, because no one's had a chance to see him physically in front of them and clearing that off. I feel like maybe an off-season move where we're getting assets for next year's draft, maybe even in the early portion of the season, you could see something like that. I know people don't necessarily maybe buy into this that much. I feel like Golden Tate potentially in the 3rd or 4th round, as the Giants are coming up on the draft board, and they say, oh, I see in the 4th round a Tyler Johnson out of Minnesota. That's a nice big-bodied receiver. Bring him into the room. Let's go. Another team that maybe is ready to win now could come knocking for a 4th or 5th round, even a 5th round pick. And I think if you're the Giants, again, it's the same thing, right? Let's get some money off the books. Golden Tate isn't going to be here. He's 32 years old. We know his time is coming to an end. And maybe similarly for D Ford as well, while only 29, so still in technically his prime. I think any of these moves should typically be around. That's maybe why Yannick had some traction for a while with us. You want it to be around young players that you're talking about having control over as they enter their prime, maybe not guys on the back end, because realistically, we're a couple of years away from hitting that surge.
I was talking to my cousin, who's a diehard Giant fan, has been a Giant season ticket holder, and he was ready to jump off the ledge this morning because he is convinced that Leonard Williams signing his franchise tag is the reason why we don't have Yannick Ngakoue, right? Like, so he's already drawing all these conclusions and he's going nuts. And I had to walk him off the ledge a little bit. And, I'm not necessarily a guy that wants to be a Dave Gettleman apologist. But what I will say is, like, can we just take a step back for a second and realize that we have the cap space this year to sign Leonard Williams. We realize that he's 25 years old still. We realize that we're not committed to him long-term for $15 to $20 million a year. Mm-hmm. And then we realize we have $100 million in cap space next year. And we also realize that, like, if he decides to walk or gets a huge contract offer, we will get a compensatory pick after this year. Like, can we just take a step back from crushing Dave Gettleman on the Leonard Williams thing and say, we're not even going to compete for a playoff spot this year. So, like, why is everyone going like bananas over a 25-year-old under team control who we could trade or get a compensatory pick for? Like, what's happening here?
What's so funny about that too is because, again, talking with people about it, when you think about the idea that if, say, the Giants trade down and maybe get, an extra asset, maybe they trade down to the top of the second and get the mid-third round back, moves that the GM has to make, all of a sudden you can look back on the Leonard Williams situation and say, listen, do I love that you gave up the 3rd round pick? No. But if you massage things and get back those assets at the end of the day, okay, fine. To your point, okay, so we have a quality guy who's motivated to have a big season under franchise tag so we can get a big contract next year with us or somewhere else. If he walks and we pick up a compensatory pick, if he's having a big enough year where he's getting a big contract, think about Landon Collins, right? We're talking about getting another 3rd round compensatory pick potentially when Leonard Williams walks. That's also okay. The interesting thing that I talked about with someone today was if Gettleman had done a 4th and a 4th, 4th rounder this year and a 4th rounder next year to get Leonard Williams, I don't think anybody really has a problem with it. And I understand, and it's a big difference from top of the 4th to top of the 3rd. But the point is like, it is a very marginal thing. And by the way, I know that third round is still guys that you think, can be starters. You're right on the fringe there, right? First and second rounders, you want those guys to come and be impact players early. You gave up an early third round pick for someone that you know what he was, though. Now you can analyze if it's the value for the Giants, etc., but you know what you're getting in Leonard Williams. When you draft one of these players today in the third, next couple of days in the third round, you don't know for sure what they are at the next level. And at the very least, Gettleman knows that if I do the right things in this draft, and that's the second piece of it, if I do the right thing in this draft and I bring in some edge rush talent, all of a sudden I go into the year saying the thing that I want Leonard Williams to do the best, which is stuff and be involved in that run defense and occupy bodies and allow defenders to work around him on the team on the defensive side of the ball. Well, now that's the value. Now you're recognizing the value that I saw in him when I made the move. Now, was it 100% planned? Maybe not. But at the end of the day, judging these things right in the moment, every time that a choice gets made is a very difficult thing to do because, by the way, GM's jobs are to think about this year and 5 years from now, right? That's the idea of Daniel Jones, right? I took Daniel Jones. Was it hard to say we took him at 6 overall and what could we have gotten? Maybe. But what I was thinking about was in 3 or 4 years, you're going to be talking about a guy who's in the top 10 in the NFL as a QB and has the opportunity for us to win playoff games and go to a championship.
Adam, I've got, you're speaking about Daniel Jones. I've got an interesting question for you. We're right amongst draft time. After watching Daniel Jones for his first year in the NFL, if he went back into the draft and was in the draft for this draft pool, where does Daniel Jones go?
Oh, I guess you know what? Okay, wait. Am I doing it based off of what I know now, or?
Yes, yeah. Daniel Jones, after watching him for a year in the NFL,
he's only behind Tua then.
But Joe Burrow is going number 1.
Well, no, okay, I'm taking Burrow off the table. Yeah, I'll say that Burrow's track record of college is enough to warrant it. I think he'd still be behind Tua because Tua showed you everything, neck and neck there. But I think, Herbert's probably a great comparison just in terms of, what you think you see from him in college. Some GMs are going to be higher on him than others, but, what's your level of concern there? I would say that, well, I'll tell you this. If Daniel Jones, everyone says, Gettleman went too high at 6th overall, and he could have got him in the middle of the first. So the consensus was he was a top 20 selection in last year's draft. He has to be, by what he did as a rookie, a top 10 selection, right? He has to improve himself by that much. So any of those teams, the Dolphins, the Chargers, you want to throw even maybe the Jaguars in there potentially. All 3 of those teams, I think, in the top 10 picks would be at least in consideration to take Daniel Jones this year.
To me, it would this is I'm dead serious, Adam. Okay. Someone needs to be committed to a hospital if they would take Justin Herbert over Daniel Jones after seeing Daniel Jones play in the NFL, right? Justin Herbert has had 2 games in his entire career where his QBR was over 75. He has ostensibly not been a very good quarterback, but everyone just keeps projecting him out. He played in the Pac-12. He had terrible completion percentage. He didn't win as many games as he should have with the talent that Oregon has compared to the people they're playing against. He's just not. To me, I look at him and I'm like, he is such an unproven commodity that it's insane to me that there's no pedigree. There's nothing there to suggest that he's going to be a superstar. Now, listen, you can argue with me that Tua, way more talented. Before he got injured, he had 35 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. He was averaging 4 touchdowns a game. The guy is an elite thrower of the ball, has a high completion percentage. I think that Tua has a higher upside than Daniel Jones, but Tua has so many injury concerns that to me, I obviously I'm a biased Giant fan, but when we think about, Daniel Jones threw 24 touchdowns in 12 games in the pros, right? Can we just take a second and think about all the other people that have come out and think about do you think that Joe Burrow's throwing 25 touchdowns in year 1? Yes. Do you think Tua is going to throw 25 touchdowns? Are these guys really going to throw 25 touchdowns in the NFL? The record for a rookie is Peyton Manning. How far are these guys really going to take it?
Herbert actually did himself damage by, if he had come out last year, he would have been an arguably consensus number 1 QB to take. So he actually hurt himself by going back for that extra year. No, and listen, you look around the league, you go to Arizona and you see that rookie, there's a lot of areas where you could potentially be looking at guys that in a redraft, right? Where would Murray have gone? How would Murray be looked at now after his rookie year? Go back and think about Lamar Jackson, right? He ends up coming out, and Baltimore ends up finding themselves having a 5th-year control option on him, and they got arguably one of the better choices. So the hindsight piece is always a very interesting one. I'm taking a look here to see if they're talking about now Lions potentially with trade conversations with the Jaguars, Chargers, and Dolphins today.
This is exactly what I was talking about before. This is why Okudah is dropping, is because if all these QB needy teams are talking to the Lions, which makes me so mad that the Giants are like 2 picks away from getting Chase Young, 1 pick away from having the hottest pick that everybody wants, and then 4, everyone's like, well, like if Chase Young goes 2 and Tua goes 3, like why are we trading up to 4? Like what do we need from the Giants? It really frustrates me. That's such a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, listen, I don't, we can, as we come up on just under 8 minutes before the official draft coverage will begin here at the top of the hour, you want to go that big picture piece for a minute and just think about last year and the games that the Giants win and how that impacts their draft standings, sweeping the Washington Redskins, beating the Dolphins, having Tampa Bay miss a field goal to aid them in their 4th win of the season. I don't know. I've always been a proponent of, win the games that you can win. I still think that there's value. You saw the way Saquon Barkley comes onto the field when that missed field goal happens. You see Daniel Jones and his level of excitement, him throwing touchdown passes against the Redskins that ultimately shuffles the board at the top of the draft. I think that all those things have value to the growth of a player. And while I get the idea of a Chase Young and what the value could be of getting a player like that, at the same time, I just think, the cliche, no one player transforms your team for you. And if you were able to get Chase Young this year, but it's because Daniel Jones threw 7 interceptions over the last 3 games last year and you lost, what would the trade-off? What's the trade-off there? It means that you're back in a position to take another quarterback this year, as opposed to saying it cost us Chase Young to know for sure that Daniel Jones can be our franchise quarterback. That's a trade-off that you have to be willing to make.
Yeah. There's nothing to be said about that. I know that on Twitter people are like, imagine if we just lost the Redskins the last game, we'd have Chase Young. It's like, you can't think about that, because if we play terrible, then we got to get rid of more people and we need more players in. But no, our young talent played well and they won games. And now you're angry because we can't get the better player because we didn't stink as badly last year. You can't have it both ways. Either you want your young rookies to develop and you start winning games and you build a winning culture, or you stink and you realize we screwed up. We do need another franchise quarterback, or we do need another cornerstone player, and you get a better pick. If we didn't have that promise, we could get Chase Young. Right now, doesn't look like it.
Young players don't perform well. GM stinks, can't evaluate talent. Young players perform well. We've screwed ourselves. We can't get the player that we want in the draft. It's a real no-win scenario for you. The other thing.
Adam, I had a couple questions for you outside of the Giants. We're talking about the fourth pick, but there's 2 teams that I think are interested that I don't know why I keep intertwining them, but it's the Buccaneers and the Patriots, right? I don't know if there's any real reason why in my mind I'm thinking about them together, but it's one of the things that keeps popping in my mind is obviously with Tom Brady signing with the Buccaneers and the Patriots making the trade of Rob Gronkowski, the Bucs become a very interesting team. That are they thinking about trading up to win now? Are they thinking let's just shore up the defense? We've got Brady for a couple of years. What the Bucs are sitting at 16, I think, and they're kind of right smack in the middle of this whole thing. What do you think they're going to do? And then my second question is, the Patriots are in a weird spot where they're drafting at 23, but it feels like they don't have a draft pick this year, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting. Of course, I think that the Bucs are in that win now kind of mode because you got Tom Brady, and then you make that extra move of adding in Gronkowski to kind of say hey, this is your guy, and you have this relationship. This guy's going to make you happy. Great, let's go get him for you. I think that they're at 14. Yeah, they're at 14 overall. The Bucs are. Somewhat interestingly is they could find themselves. They're in need of a left tackle. Mekhi Becton might be a guy that's sitting there for them at 14, and they may get kind of this accidental luck of falling in there. If they were going to rise up the board, you think about their defensive side of the ball. Would they be targeting someone in particular in that regard? I find that hard to believe. I think that this offense that you're going to put Tom Brady behind could arguably be, with those weapons, one of the best group of offensive weapons he's ever had in his career. If they're fairly set on that side of the ball, I think that the Bucs can still do enough work to fill out their roster and have a solid year. Remember, you're talking about a team last year with a quarterback setting a league record for interceptions. Tom Brady's not going to do that this year. You want to talk wins and losses? You can win yourself 3 games just by not having Jameis Winston as your quarterback for the Bucs. So they could be a lot further along than people realize, even on paper. From a Patriots standpoint, I think Love is a very interesting quarterback out there that if you want to talk about, I know they took Stidham last year, and maybe they had confidence in him or not, but I theoretically could see them trying to turn the page immediately from Tom Brady. Love seems to be that moderate sleeper in the quarterback class. I think that he should be taken over Herbert if all things being equal. So all of a sudden at 23, if you're sitting there and he hasn't been maybe snatched up by the Dolphins, if they don't get a quarterback at the top of the draft and they want to take a look at him, that could be kind of the pick that the Patriots get to go with and say, okay, turn over the franchise. We're moving on with the next 15 years of this new system under Belichick, right?
Yeah, I mean the interesting thing about Jordan Love is that his projection is 21.5 over under on what pick he's going to be taken at. The Patriots are picking, I believe, at 23. They're saying he's going to go earlier than people thought. Adam, you stole my thunder. You stole it right from me, right from the jaws of victory. I had it in my hands, and that's that. And we're going to talk about bold predictions. I want to turn this back to you in a second. My bold prediction is that Justin Herbert's going to fall. There's been so much talk about how all these teams want him more than Tua, and all these teams are trying to trade up. I am convinced 100% that all these teams are trying to trade up for Tua, and no one cares about Justin Herbert. And there's a race to see who can get into the top 3 to get Tua because he's that talented. And once that happens, it could be a Johnny Manziel, Aaron Rodgers situation where all of a sudden this guy's sitting there being like, everyone told me I was going top 5, and now he's still on the board at 15, 17, 18. And what you said is true. The odds are who will be drafted first between Herbert and Jordan Love. It's 4-1 if you want to take Jordan Love right now to be able to be drafted in front of him. So you're getting pretty good odds on that. I kind of like it's a little juicy, and I think you and I are in the same boat. I just think Herbert's going to drop. I think people are going to fall in love with Jordan Love's arm. Everyone keeps comparing him to Patrick Mahomes. They're like, well, he's not Patrick Mahomes, but he's got an arm like Patrick Mahomes, or he's got consistency. Everyone's comparing this guy, and if that's the case, someone's trading up for him.
Do you want to relive the alleged disaster that a disgraced Giants head coach Ben McAdoo infamously wanted to draft Patrick Mahomes when he was the head coach of the New York Football Giants?
Isn't that a stipulation that if you were a coach during the time of the 2017 draft that
you wanted to
you wanted to draft Patrick Mahomes? It doesn't matter who you had on your roster. If you didn't come out and say that you were thinking about drafting Patrick Mahomes,
right?
That feels like a rule of thumb at this point.
Saying I was thinking about drafting everybody because that's my job. My job is to think about drafting everybody.
I had a thought he's going to be a pretty good quarterback, so I thought about drafting him. And it's okay, go out on a limb. You evaluated the talent in the NFL draft crazy. That happens,
Now, from you said bold prediction standpoint, what are you looking? What's your thoughts here?
My bold prediction, because as of right now in Vegas, it says that Herbert is still over.
So you're saying Herbert just plummets and he's out there.
I'm saying my bold prediction. He's projected to go within the top 6 picks. I am saying that Justin Herbert will not go in the top 10. That is my belief.
What are the odds? What are the odds for him not to get taken? Can you do that?
I mean, as creative as they get, they don't have those because I would start doing those odds where I'd be like, if it was 5-1 for him not to go in the top 15, I'd be all over that right now. If it was a stock, I'd be fading the stock pretty, shorting the stock pretty quickly. But
Who do you think? Where do you think like a player? I busted your chops about this on the podcast and here as well about Derek Brown, just because Gettleman loves the hog mollies. But players like that, though, Derek Brown is arguably one of the top 3 best players in this draft class. But because of his position, who ends up getting a real steal in Derek Brown? Because you're outside of the area where you want to go, the offensive line or the quarterbacks that are available, something in that 8 to 13 range that someone's just going to picking up a top 3 talent in this draft by having to do nothing other than wait.
I look at the same thing. Javon Kinlaw is also another guy of South Carolina that's kind of in the same boat. Like defensive linemen, like really solid ones, are kind of falling out of vogue with everyone but Dave Gettleman. Like if he could accumulate all of them, he would in this draft. It's like the puppies in Bridesmaids, where like that one bridesmaid just accumulates 12,000 puppies in her truck, and she's like, I can't get enough of them. Like I took all of them. Like Dave Gettleman with defensive linemen is like Melissa McCarthy in Bridesmaids with all the puppies in the truck.
Thank goodness you rounded it out for me. I was like, I don't know where this guy is going. He's like, picture yourself in a puppy store.
Now you're with me. Now you're with me.
No, 100%. You're right. It's just gonna be, but it's gonna be interesting. But someone's still gonna get value, and hopefully it's not the Giants. The Giants getting value, but it's someone. Some of these people are gonna get value. A guy like Okudah is another guy that I think somebody just ends up falling into value because of the other positions that get taken. It doesn't mean that you should take them at the top end of the draft, but somebody in the 7, 8, 9, 10 range is going to get a top 4 talent that's going to be a lockdown corner for you, and all you have to do is sit on your board. There's something in my mind about I wish that the Giants were in any situation where the best thing to do is just let it happen, and it's good, because even right now, talking about taking an offensive lineman, the consensus is saying, well, right, these guys shouldn't be taken in the top 5, but everybody that does it will, because that's where you are, and you can't get them at 14 or 15.
Yes, and you're 100% right. It'd be great if the Giants could just like sit back, trade back, take the best available. They didn't. They could use like positions of need were all over the board where they could take a defensive lineman or they could take a cornerback. But that's not the case right now. They signed Bradbury. They traded up for DeAndre Baker. They have cornerbacks on the roster. They have a gluttony. If you say any strength the Giants have, it's on the defensive line at this point. Mm-hmm. Like some of these guys that would be great to get at 10, 12, 15 if we were to trade back, that would be great, are just not a good fit for the Giants, which is frustrating. Offensive tackle is a position, which is great for us right now, but we can't find that many trade partners because we don't know who's going to be trading up. And, Adam, we've hit past 8 o'clock. It's 8:03, and we're going to get some draft situation stuff happening pretty quickly.
They just showed, just to kind of put in context the weirdness of this year's draft, they just showed Vegas, empty strips, empty parking lots. You know what I mean? Like it just how not from an NFL standpoint, they're making enough money. I'm not concerned about them, but how unfortunate just for fans in general of the NFL, right? What a great setting, what a great atmosphere to be able to do that, and to have to see it in that way of just, here's where it was gonna be going on, and now instead, as they show this enormous big board with everybody in the first 32 picks just working it out. I will say, there was all that concern about technical difficulties and glitches. I'm not nearly as worried about that as I think as people are. If you think that the NFL doesn't have the financial power and the technological you know what I mean, to sort this stuff out, this has been a long time coming. I actually anticipate this going off relatively smoothly without much issue. The only curiosity I do have is around some trades and whether or not you start to see a little bit of extension of time in between picks in case there's some type of, we're just trying to make sure we're communicating what's the allocation of assets, who's moving to where, and how are they going to do it. As now the commissioner comes live here and looks about as relaxed as a stiff board in a hallway. This guy.
Have you seen his house? They had some videos of what he was going to be doing. He obviously lives in Bronxville, New York, which is in Westchester County, which is one of the most affluent places. Bronxville is one of the most affluent places. His draft bunker is like one of the most incredible places ever. The bunker where he is talking from right now is worth maybe $2 million on its own, which is pretty impressive if you ask me.
Yeah, it's my fallout shelter. Little $2 million fallout shelter, no big deal. One of the things that we're hoping is possibility that Keith McPherson could join us here. If he doesn't, it's not shame on him. He had a lot of obligations tonight. as Andy takes a little bit of a step away here for a minute. And what we're excited about him coming in for is Keith McPherson, who does the Talking Nets podcast. Maybe familiar with my work with Doug Norrie on the We Got Nets podcast as well. We're doing a lot of fun stuff around the NBA over on here on Sportscaster, but he is a Cowboys fan, and I'll see if Andy makes it back in for the comment on this, that from a Giants fan perspective, if you think about Dave Gettleman and the concerns you have, his ability to handle the technology, right? Make sure that he's communicating with everyone. The classic photo of him with that 300-page, 3-ring hole punch binder in front of him at his desk at his home. Apparently, Jerry Jones is being left to his own devices on the draft front. So he is sitting down alone, no assistance, and he's going to execute that draft for the Dallas Cowboys. And I have to say, for two guys that are technically senior citizens and can go out for an early bird special together, I have some level of reservation around these individuals executing on their own. And I actually have a lot more confidence in Dave Gettleman than I do necessarily with Jerry Jones. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of that there. We're sitting here at 8:05. You've got the commissioner, Roger Goodell, giving his initial introductory speeches, obviously highlighting the COVID-19 pandemic and the impact that that's had, not just on something as relatively minor as the NFL draft, but of course, to communities all over across this country. So as we've said on the podcast before and on a lot of the Sportscaster streams, we hope that everyone is staying safe and healthy and that everyone's family is doing well, and that this little dog and pony show is something to help entertain you during these difficult times, as they say. As we move towards the top of it, and we know that Burrow will be the official first overall pick by the Cincinnati Bengals, presumably I look at a guy like Chase Young and say that the Washington Redskins are going to go that route. And then we get to that Detroit Lions area and the curiosity, right? Are they a legitimate trade partner for some of these teams looking to come up? If they're not, is it all a smokescreen and they want Okudah to replace Slay that they moved on from this offseason? Is Simmons a guy that they're targeting as well, possibly? A guy like Matt Patricia, obviously on the hot seat there in Detroit, and getting some defensive value is probably going to help them turn things around as they wait for Matthew Stafford, who, outside of having this injury, has been an Iron Man underneath center for them and arguably is still a top 10 quarterback in this league. So, a lot of their issues are going to be about stopping teams as opposed to scoring points. So it'll be interesting to see ultimately where they go. One of the other things that we'll highlight here, as we've run mock drafts, we've done some official ones on the podcast, obviously, and we tried to limit those, generally speaking, to not overload you with 1,000 different scenarios. But on the side, I started looking at a couple of these and noticed that one of the areas that the Giants could have some success, certainly, is in the 3rd and 4th rounds. So we know that they're there picking on the back end as Andy rejoins us. So I'm talking about now, Andy, just that idea of value for the Giants here. And I said we've gone over a couple of our very specific mock drafts, but when I start to rattle around these numbers, I text you that last one that I had done, where there's not a weird one. There's a reach in there, and I know that it is. But as I started to massage through it, I really thought about this in a different way. So if the Giants stay at the top of the draft and they take an offensive lineman, let's say Thomas for the sake of argument, in the 2nd round, where I personally have fallen in love with Chase Claypool and want him, and I know that you're talking about probably being 15 to 20 picks too high to take him there probably, but start moving around the board, right? The Giants can trade out of the top at the 4th round, maybe get a couple assets, use the 7th round, 6th round picks to get back up into the board. I ended up coming up with this collection of players, and I know you love the one of them, and that's Andrew Thomas. Say you take Claypool in the 2nd round, Darrell Taylor at the end of the 3rd, and then in the 4th, getting a collection of selections by moving assets, you can get Jacob Phillips, linebacker out of LSU, edge rusher Alton Robinson out of Syracuse, Tyler Baez at the 23rd pick there, center out of Wisconsin, and then the 5th round pick, which would end up being our last, Thaddeus Moss, potentially to be replacing a guy like Evan Ingram. The difference here that I realized was, and this is where I know we've had this discussion, take Claypool out of it. So at the top of the 2nd round, say the Giants stay at 4 and they take Cesar Ruiz. Okay? Now what you've done in the first 2 rounds is you fixed your offensive line. Then instead, at the back end of that 4th, you get the best receiver that's available. We highlighted before, Tyler Johnson out of Minnesota, big-bodied guy. This to me feels like a really reasonable way for the Giants to approach it. Now, we can debate about the center at the top there, but this collection of players, specifically multiple edge rushers and linebacker in the 3rd and 4th round, is a way that you can flesh out this defensive roster and still fix the offense.
I hate center in the 2nd round. There's just too much talent.
So would you prefer me to stay with Chase Claypool?
I would prefer you to stay with Chase Claypool.
Fantastic, buddy. You don't have to sell. This isn't a hard sell for me.
I mean, the latest 2 mock drafts have another guy, Michael Pittman Jr., going in the 1st round. People are now saying he's a 1st-round talent. I was drafting him in our mock drafts a month ago in the 4th round, and he was still available in like the 5th round. Like, it's incredible how the ebbs and flows work. If Chase Claypool is the guy that you like, that's tall and athletic, I prefer T. Higgins if he's going to fall there. But at the same time, like, if you're telling me that you have a guy that is a number 1 starter, will start in your X position on offense, is that big body guy. Pittman is 6'3", Claypool 6'4", T. Higgins is 6'4". I'm loving all these guys, and I would 100% take a wide receiver over a center in the 2nd round. 100%.
And one of the things that you have to think about too is ultimately for me, right? You could make your move in the 1st round, the 2nd round, whoever you go. Say you go with Claypool, and it's a bit of a reach there, but all these wide receivers are starting to rise up these boards. It's a deep class, but now all of them are starting to get taken a lot earlier. So if you went Claypool, then the way that this balances out to me is you could say, well, that's a bit of a reach. But if at the end of the draft I tell you that I got some of these other players like Phillips and Taylor and Robinson, now what I'm explaining to you is that what I've accomplished, look at my draft in totality, right? Don't worry about the fact that you feel like I reached in the 2nd round. If by the end of the draft, you can take a step back and say, I see starters, I see depth, I see improvement across the board, then it doesn't matter where you end up taking. There's a bit of a reach here or there. And as you and I highlighted on that last episode, one of the concerns that I really have is reaching for something that you don't feel like is a known commodity. And maybe that's your point about center, right? And where the value lies with that. I had highlighted a guy like Zach Bond and said, there's this off the field issue. I'm not really going to call that an issue. It's a minor flag to me. Guy loves to hydrate, but at his size at 6'1" and how he fits into the system, I look at him and say, you're talking about a contributor. If at the top of the 2nd round, like to your point, if I take Chase Claypool, whether or not I'm reaching for him, I also know that he is a drastic improvement and addition to our wide receiver core and a dynamic that we don't have anywhere else on the roster currently. So that's the big piece too, right? Taking a position you have anywhere and saying, I just made it exponentially better.
I agree with you. You know what, Zach Bond, honestly, it's funny. My brother-in-law is here who is a diehard Patriot fan, but it's crazy to me. I honestly, I don't know what it is. Zach Bond just feels like a Patriot, doesn't he? It's like, he's kind of a complimentary piece. He had some weird issues, but like he's just had crazy production his entire career at Wisconsin. And then they signed him, and he's like Kyle Van Noy, and he's like amazing. And then they're like, yeah, but we drafted him with like the late 1st, early 2nd. He's overperformed that. Let's just trade him or get rid of him. And now all of a sudden his 2nd contract someone else. Like Zach Bond feels like that type of guy to me. But
also the guy that if another team, if we had drafted him, he never would have quite met his potential.
He would have made it on the field, right? Like it just feels like that to me. But yeah, Chase Claypool is a perfect example of a guy like I am not a guy that's stuck to the board. Like just because a right guard is ranked as the 36th best player, like that doesn't matter to me if we have Zeitler. Like we don't need that. Let's figure out the need that we need married with the best talent available there. So, like, if it's Claypool, I'm fine with that. I prefer T. Higgins if he's there, which it's crazy to me to even be discussing the fact that he might be there at 36. But I'm okay taking a wide receiver in the 2nd round. I'm okay taking a safety, an edge rusher. There's a lot of positions that I feel comfortable with if we feel like that's the best talent available. Just cornerback and center are the 2 things in the 2nd round that I just don't want us to address.
As they highlight some of what they're doing here with the draft, multiple box shots for the Cincinnati Bengals of people excited and clamoring and the war room going on. I agree with you. And the weird part for me about is we'll talk about the center position specifically because for me, I agree with you that they shouldn't necessarily take a center top of the second round. But based on our own kind of philosophy, it's like saying, if you like Ruiz, if the Giants like Ruiz, it shouldn't matter that it's the top of the second round. You take the value when it's there, and that's kind of that's the interesting piece of it.
No,
like
I'm telling you, if Rodrigo Blankenship is there, he's the kicker from Georgia. It's like, well, the Giants need competition for Rosas, so let's go ahead. And if you think he's going to be a pretty good kicker, let's take him in the second round at the 36th pick. You'd be like, have you lost your mind? Are you insane?
As Otto tries to calm you down here, but come on, but you're talking about a special teams player versus a center, and I'm sorry, I understand your stance on where you value the center position and more specifically, it's where you think the value can be had in the NFL draft. That's really what you're talking about, not the importance of the position. So I understand that. But you can't deny the fact that you only have 5 players across the offensive line. You need to plug in guys at every single one of them. And if relatively speaking, when you look at this draft and you say maybe there is value at center in the later rounds, okay, fine. But one of the things we tried to look at too is offensive linemen. There's not a ton there. You can get back in the 5th and 6th round and think about developmental players, but it may also, if you're talking about I want to get 2 offensive linemen that can help improve this at any position that it's going to take, that's probably the other element of it too. You can say we can go 3rd round or 4th round and get the center. You can get Matt Hennessy if we want to, and the value is relatively equal there. But if you're in the New York Football Giants organization, if you're Dave Gettleman and all you're thinking about is I want to fix the biggest problems I see, I would understand if they did it. I wouldn't prefer it. Again, just like me, right? If Ruiz and Claypool are sitting there, I'm not saying, you know what I think? Let's just go with Ruiz. Let's secure the center position. So it's just going to be interesting to see what happens.
Now, Adam, I agree with you. I understand your sentiment. There's nothing that you can tell me that will convince me that drafting a center in the second round for the Giants is ever a good idea. Then, to be honest with you, I just keep thinking about how interesting this first round is. Cincinnati's on the clock. There's 8 minutes left for them to make their pick. We've already talked.
Joe Burrow's in a swamp of some kind.
Yeah, he's in a swamp in the bayou. They just showed him with him and his parents just sitting on his couch chilling. Like we've already said, the owner of the Bengals already sent him a handwritten letter. I was like, "You're going to be taken." It's such a weird situation. Like these guys get to usually go up on stage, hold the jersey, cry, like millions of people watching him. He's like on his Bob's couch with his parents, like. Just sitting there, knowing that he's going to be taken, knowing that he just probably made what $25 million guaranteed, and he's on like a poop brown couch that looks like one that I had in college. It's like this is insane to me. Like,
he's home, he's comfortable, he's relaxed. Listen,
I think he's in basketball shorts from LSU. Like these guys usually wear $10,000 suits. He's in basketball shorts. He hasn't had a haircut in like 2 months. And he's hanging out with his parents. He's like, "Oh, sweet! I guess I just got taken number 1 overall." Like,
by the way, I can relate to him. I'm having a real problem with my hair as well these days. I mistimed my final haircut before the pandemic broke out. You know what though? If you're one of the later round guys who falls out of the first round and you buy that $10,000 suit, guess what? You're feeling pretty good, relaxing in your sweats at home. If you end up falling to the middle or late second round, $10,000 back in your pocket can make all the difference in the world.
Listen, if I'm a guy that gets drafted late first round, I'm buying the suit anyway, and I'm strutting around my driveway like I own the joint. Like. There is no way that this pandemic is getting me down. I am full steam ahead, looking fresh to death. It don't matter who's watching me. I'll go on my Instagram Live. I just want people to see me in the suit. I'll shake hands with a cardboard cutout of Roger Goodell. I'll hold my thing up in front of my Ford Taurus. Like, I am going for it.
My Ford Taurus. Yeah, I guess that's true. Something that's bothering me is that there's 6.5 minutes on the clock for the Cincinnati Bengals, and we already know that they're taking Burrow. In terms of just moving along what feels like could be a slow-moving round in this virtual NFL draft, they're not doing me any favors right now.
This is one of the frustrating things about the NFL draft is there's 6 minutes to go, and they're like, "Hold on, let's check if Dave Gettleman's Wi-Fi is working." Like, let's make sure everyone can do it. We're just going to, like, drag this out. Like, they knew they were picking him for the last 2 months. Just come on, tell us that he's being picked, and let's save 10 minutes so that we can have more fun with this. This is ridiculous right now.
I got to watch Louis Red talk instead. You pointed out the couch for Joe Burrow. I'm more concerned with the drapes. I don't know if you caught the drapes in the background there. That was, I'm talking like Victorian-style drapery, ceiling to floor around those windows.
Wait, and Joe Burrow's older. Like, he's 21. How does he not have a cocktail in hand? Why is he not on his porch with one of his patented cigars? Like,
image, good sir, image.
He's the number one pick. He's got, like, how does he not have a cocktail being like, well, times are different, everybody. Cheers, right? Like, he's saying
sir. Joe Burrow is Johnny Everyman. He's about to go back to Cincinnati, his home state of Ohio.
If you're watching this live, Duke Tobin, the Bengals director of player personnel, was just on the screen, and he was in, and like his house looked like fire. He had like an electric fire with a bar in the other room where his wife or one of his family members was, and then he had like the outdoor pool outside. Like, he looked like he was living large. He looked like he was going to do this draft in an hour tonight, and then he was going to have a cocktail and take a quick dip in his pool. And like, to me,
one of those people
has figured it out.
One of those people is about to make millions of dollars. The other guy has been making millions of dollars. Yeah, so Tobin, he's got it all sorted out. I would have loved to have seen a GM sitting in his pool, just kind of drifting around with a cocktail. Especially if you're Cincinnati Bengals, I'd just be floating in my pool. I wouldn't bother with any of this nonsense, none of the paperwork.
Wait, Adam, have you heard what Jerry Jones is doing tonight?
Oh no! Because so here's before.
Wait, hold the line, because I'm just laughing so much right now. Jerry Jones is set up, hunkered down in his multi-million-dollar mansion. He told his whole scouting department, take the night off.
Okay, good. No, because this is what so I was saying, if Keith McPherson happened to come on, we were looking forward to it because he is a Cowboys fan. So before, when we were doing some of our work together, the last thing I said was, I was like, I've got my Dave Gettleman concerns. And Keith goes, your concerns? He's like, Jerry Jones told everyone to get away. He'll handle it. He's like, you know how concerning that is to have him at his just.
He's Googling mock draft.
Yeah, get out of here.
He's Googling like what Adam Schefter or Todd McShay has as their big board. He literally told his entire scout team, literally, don't worry about me. I got this tonight. So Jerry is just pouring a cocktail out, and he's saying, hey, boys, hunker down, because when it comes to my pick, I am going to be the king.
You don't even get to say take the night off like dad's in charge. Just take the night off. Grandpa's behind the wheel.
And, like, imagine if you're working in the front office of the Cowboys right now. You're like, what the hell is about to happen? Like, are we trading Dak Prescott? Like, is he just going to, like, go rogue here? Or is he just going to take the fastest wide receiver that's available on the board? Like, what's about to happen? You know?
So follow-up question then. If you are in the Cowboys organization, are you texting Jerry Jones at all? Or are you trying not to risk, throwing curveballs at him where he's trying to possibly answer the phone or, respond to an email? Is this just the Cowboys always have to go radio silence and say, yeah, this is it, guys?
If you want to work for the Cowboys, you already know the answer to that question. And that's you just let Jerry do whatever the heck he's going to do. While we were talking, the Bengals pick is in right now. They are showing Joe Burrow, the Plains, Ohio. They're showing his Heisman Trophy speech, which honestly, like, as a side note, was really awesome. Like, I thought he hit a home run. The Joe Burrow tributes and all the different things they're showing. Man, he is getting hyped up. And he's wearing basketball shorts and a t-shirt on his couch.
He got an omelet named after him.
He got
send back the $25 million check. He gets an omelet named after him at a local diner spot in Ohio. What are we even worried about?
I mean, you made it when they called the burro, right?
Well, I don't know if that's very appetizing, is it?
Wow, that's awesome.
Do you want to eat a burro? Like, do you want a big bowl of burro?
I would take it. I mean, come on.
You got a Bengals hat.
I don't know if I want a Claypool. Like, I don't know if I big plate of Claypool either. But I'm just saying,
Yeah. Did Joe Burrow just have a Bengals hat in his hand and he's just holding it, waiting to put it up?
Boo.
I think so.
Here we go.
Boo.
Cincinnati Bengals select Joe Burrow, quarterback, LSU.
one of the coolest players I've ever seen.
And the crowd goes nuts. Joe Burrow, who would have?
And the crowd goes silently wild in the background behind Roger Goodell. There you go, though.
I mean,
look at that, though.
My teaser on my bet.
Which one do you have?
It's like top 3 players.
Oh, my brother-in-law just said he nailed the first part of his get the first 3 players drafted correctly in order. And I said, good job picking Joe Burrow #1. That was the one he needed to escape, you know?
Oh, who cares? So who does he have going 3 to Detroit? That's the question.
Who do you have at 3 going to Detroit? Look, we're gonna bring him in. Look, everybody, this is my brother-in-law, Greg Jason. He's enjoying some wings and some pizza that we got going on here. I know.
What completes your tease? What completes your tease at 3 to Detroit?
Derek Brown.
Derek Brown to Detroit is completing your tease.
Yeah. And then I have one with Herbert going.
Yeah, I think so. So I think what's going to end up happening is how much money did you put down on that collectively?
Not a lot.
Okay. Well, that little bit of money is never going to make it back to you, friend. I want you to know that right now.
Something tells me that maybe some of the
you made a small financial mistake.
It can be corrected though.
Hold on. I'll tell you what it is.
He's looking it up right now.
Nothing brings more confidence than someone who goes, I'm not entirely sure. Let me take a look at that.
I put so many in. I got 15 bets going. Burrow, Tua, and Chase Young.
Burrow, Tua, Chase Young is
26 to 1.
26 to 1.
Plus 2,600.
Oh, but
Burrow,
you have Chase
Tua,
Young going 3rd in that.
Correct.
Oh,
yeah. Goes up to Tua. Burrow, Tua. Sorry, no, hold on. My other one's Burrow, Chase Young, Derek Brown, plus 450.
Have him write down his comments going forward, just to be, I need you to filter these things.
I mean, Washington is definitely taking Chase Young at #2 here, and so the real
wouldn't the least speculated thing that Washington taking a quarterback? That's like the least rumored thing these last 2 days. So that makes it the most logical thing for Washington to do now.
If Washington takes Tua, I don't even know what I would do right now.
Well, it wouldn't change anything for us anyway. Then Detroit would take Chase Young. It doesn't change, nothing changes for us.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't, unless someone loves Herbert.
Yeah.
That's what I said. I was between the 2.
Oh yeah, I just don't. Yeah. Oh, if this long wait is gonna kill me, man. I just need to know who the Giants are taking at this point.
So,
I have Redskins as Giants fans. Who do you want the Redskins to take here? Would you like them to pick us in?
If you're a Redskins fan, you want them to take Chase Young.
No, he was asking as a Giants fan, who do you want the Redskins to take? My answer is
anybody other than Chase Young, I guess, would be.
I want to take Justin Herbert because I don't believe in him, but
I wanted to take Blankenship.
Yeah, the kicker from Georgia. That's what they want.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to see them take.
He's a great kicker.
It's a fantastic prospect. Yeah, listen, it's gonna be interesting, man. I honestly, even though after the draft last year and the start of the season, everyone looks at Dwayne Haskins and you think, boy, the Giants really made the better choice out of the 2 there. I still think that Haskins is going to be perfectly fine.
Different place. So the Redskins pick is in. I mean, they must have just run to the podium and been like, let's just take Chase Young and move on.
Yeah.
But could you imagine if it's like Isaiah Simmons and they're like, we love his versatility? Like, that would be a crazy game changer, wouldn't it?
Listen, again, based on purely where they stack up in the draft, a Derek Brown, an Okudah, those technically it's Chase Young, Okudah, and Derek Brown are the next highest ranking prospects on the consensus big board. So any one of those 3, they theoretically could look at and say they would like to take. But obviously, as they say, protecting the quarterback and getting after the quarterback, the 2 most important things that you can do in the NFL, and Chase Young is the only one of those players there that lockdown should be able to do that at the NFL level. So far, the virtual NFL draft is going off without a hitch, friends.
With the exception that they say the pick is in, and it's been 3 minutes, and like no one's telling me who got picked, right?
They never do. Yeah, they never do that. Well, and this is what we talked about, right? The slight lag is going to be the pick is in. Now let's confirm that Chase Young is ready. Is he there? Is the feed good? Is he going to put his hat on? Can we talk to Joe Burrow first? Is that Susie Colbert? Susie Colbert talking with Joe Burrow.
Yep.
I'll see if let's take a look real quick. We, of course, have now hit that unfortunate, uncomfortable lull as the draft finally gets underway before picks start to come in. And when you automatically know that the quarterback's coming off the board at the top of the draft, it really just leaves a lot more time to speculate and wait here. There's nothing really going on in terms of the rumors as far as what could be happening for the Giants, potentially any trade downs. The best case scenario, again, for me, is talking about looking at one of these opportunities to trade back for the Giants and trying to get some extra assets. I don't know if I see that being the case, and I really don't know, to Andy's point, if any other team is looking at another quarterback and thinking they need to go get him, or if two teams are even both looking at Tua and thinking that they need to go get him and maneuver around the board. Potentially now, if Detroit makes a move here out of the third spot, that could maybe start to shake things up a little bit. That would be that'd be mildly interesting at this point as well.
You know what's interesting is like the pick is in, but no NFL teams know what the pick is yet. They don't release it until the actual announcement. So I'm curious to see what happens here.
So there's no internal communication for them?
No, Chase Young is on the phone right now, so that leads me to believe that he's talking to Washington, but he doesn't look – is he on the phone with his agent or is he on the phone with Washington right now? Because he does not look pleased.
He's on multiple phones. One of the things that I've been considering about doing is getting at least 2 or 3 phones possibly.
That guy looks bigger than Chase Young on the right. Yeah.
He's down. Is Chase Young from Washington?
No,
because the feed is from Washington D.C.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it is.
I don't think they took him.
Wait.
This could also be a lot of that, again, a lot of the technological chatter, right? Like, yeah. Hey, this is the NFL talking to him saying, like, we're waiting to get our feed set up. Give us a minute.
They should show Dwayne Haskins.
I mean, that was the most unexcited I think I've ever seen a player. Here we go.
With the second pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, Washington Redskins select Chase Young.
All right.
So maybe Chase Young did get the news and he just wasn't excited to be going to the Washington Redskins.
He's like, how do I get out of Washington?
That's why we see Chase a very, very happy young man.
What do you mean he's happy? He was really happy.
In the nation last season. I guess.
So nothing's changed at the top of the draft here then. You're talking about Joe Burrow going to Cincinnati Bengals as expected, Chase Young going to the Washington Redskins as expected, and now I guess a little bit of speculation around Detroit. They've been linked to both Okudah, they've been linked to Simmons, and then this last day here, you've heard about the potential for them to maybe be trading out of that third spot with somebody. So maybe some things get shaken up here. If not, if they stay here, who do you think they're taking? Are they going Simmons, or do you think that they'll maybe take a shot there on Okudah?
I think they're still probably leaning towards Okudah, just knowing the trade with Darius Slay that happened. But I mean, who knows? Who knows at this point? Like, it looked weird. Vegas has been changing their mind on what they think is going to go on with the Detroit Lions. Washington, it almost looked like Chase Young was very upset that he wasn't getting drafted, and now he got drafted. Like, this is all up in the air right now. I honestly don't know what's going to happen with Detroit.
Hey, well, to your point when you said the top of it, right? A little bit anticlimactic for some of these players because you're not in the big crowd, you're not in this big setup where you have an opportunity to maybe, have everyone cheer for you as you get selected, the little fan base groups that all get to come there as well. So there's definitely a little bit of a lack of fanfare here as these players finally get their announcements. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these guys are getting the heads up slightly before they're being taken here. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on as far as the third overall pick here with Detroit. 3 minutes left to go here. Time shrunk down a little bit in terms of on the clock there. It's moving a little bit faster, at least because of the delays that they're leaving to interview some of these players as well, as they showcase some of these highlights on Chase Young.
I mean, what do you think's going to happen with the Lions? Like, what does your gut say right now?
Well, it's weird because if I'm Matt Patricia and I need to, this is about, I'm going to be on the hot seat. I'm trying to save my job. Okudah is a 1-for-1 replacement for Darius Slay, but I would make the case that Simmons is giving you more impact on the defensive side of the ball in a lot of different areas. So, Simmons could end up elevating that defensive unit in a couple of different facets, as opposed to saying, well, yes, we're locking down on the outside, but you're going to see the real value of Okudah over, the second year, the third year, the fourth year, where Patricia needs to make some type of proof of result this upcoming season right now. I think Simmons could be the bigger impact there for you in terms of wins and losses specifically. Oh, they compare him to who are they comparing? They're comparing Chase Young to.
They're comparing Chase Young to Jadeveon Clowney.
Right.
Listen, the Lions pick is in. If there's not a backhanded agreement for who they're picking, this puts the Giants on the clock, baby.
Finally, after what feels like decades, although it was only a couple of months, the Giants will officially be on the clock here now as the Detroit Lions pick has come off the board. I tend to think that they're going Okudah. That was the longest standing link that they had there over all this time leading up to the draft. Like you said, it does replace Slay. I can make an argument for Simmons and being the bigger impact on the board. If Simmons is here for the Giants, do you think that they're going there?
Yeah.
Because what I've been hearing now from on the Giants side of things, when you think about this, the Giants have talked about how they'd be comfortable with any one of the offensive tackles. And what that also tells you is if they're comfortable with any of them, it means that they don't love any one of them.
Right.
So if this is Okudah, in fact, for the Detroit Lions, I will not be wholly surprised if the Giants go with Isaiah Simmons.
That's an honor of his grandfather who died in 2012.
Sugar Ray.
Another quiet scene there. There's Matt Patricia. You also have Bob Quinn there on the right side of the screen, the executive VP and GM for the Detroit Lions. And there's Matt Patricia's son getting some national airtime. Okudah. So there it is. So officially every option is on the table. If you were a New York Giants fan and you wanted them to address offensive line first and foremost, then you would have probably hoped that the Lions took Simmons just to remove the option off the board. Now the Giants are officially on the clock. Simmons is available. Any of those top tackles is available. Derek Brown is available.
Derek Brown, you stop it.
Where are the Giants ultimately going to go here? The longer the time comes off the clock on the Giants draft here would possibly indicate to me the chance that they're trying to conduct a trade down, right? Because if you're sitting here
trading down, I think they're staying put, and it's either Simmons or a tackle. They really know what. If Derek Brown gets announced right now, Adam, you will be doing the rest of this live podcast without me because I cannot say what I want to say on any kind of live stream.
I tend to agree with you that if they stay here, but the more time that comes off the clock here with them on the board, to me, is a more and more indicator that they're trying to trade down. Because if you're up on the board right now, you know if Simmons is there, we're taking Simmons. Or if he's not there, this is the tackle that we want. The only thing that prevents them from putting the pick in immediately is if now conversations are happening potentially with the Miami Dolphins, potentially with the Chargers, potentially with the Jacksonville Jaguars saying, okay, it's all played out now. We're sitting here. Are you looking to leap somebody to make this happen? Because every pick before this, as we said, didn't necessarily force any of the QB needy teams to have to make a move. But this is your final chance. If you're the Chargers, this is your last chance to get ahead of Miami.
Adam, this is our time to shine. We have been speaking about Andrew Thomas. We need to will it into existence at this point. And I don't know if it's going to happen, but I just feel like he's the most ready left tackle, and I know that we have Nate Solder, and maybe that's the one reason why we don't take him. But
Well, that's the one reason why we don't take him.
I know.
I got a whole different set of problems. Sorry, that's 2 months worth of anger around Nate Solder just bubbling over for me.
That's awesome. Matt Patricia was just with his little kid, and they made the draft pick, and he gave him a little fist bump. Like, what's not to like about that? Like, we got the guy that, like, that kid knew more than all of us going into today, right? Like, you realize that?
Famously, Matt Patricia said he will be allowing his son to make the draft selection for the Detroit Lions. He's had a rocky road as a head coach. He knows that he needs some help, and he's just going to trust his gut here and go with his son's selection.
And his son can't get fired, so he can just blame it on his kid, right?
Not a bad idea either. Coming up on 5 minutes here. So listen, we're getting into the dance here. We're getting into the dance. If we get underneath 4 minutes on the clock, I'm telling you, it continues to grow in the trade down scenario. Anything before that, the pick is it. I'm not saying. If it continues to wind down like this, I assume that there's those kind of conversations happening. There's really no reason outside of the NFL standard to let some time run off.
Adam, what I will say is right now, if there is a team that likes Tua more than the Dolphins, the Giants are in the premier position, right? Like, if you want to get in front of the Dolphins and you're the Chargers, you're the Jaguars, you're the Raiders, you're any of these teams and you love Tua, like, the Giants are it. You have to trade with the Giants to get in front of the Miami Dolphins, and Tua is sitting there. So, like, I would welcome a trade. I'd love a trade. We're about to find out how many teams really love Tua, because if the Dolphins are the check mark, you got to get in front of them.
Well, and like you said too, you also know a lot about how people feel about Tua, because if nobody moves up to the Giants, if you find out that they didn't get a lot of substantial offers, it means that maybe someone really likes Tua, but not everybody liked Tua, right? That there's some differences there.
Man,
what is Carolina's situation now at quarterback?
So Carolina signed Teddy Bridgewater.
Oh, right. So they're happy and healthy.
But and they traded away was it Kyle Allen or something to Washington. Mm-hmm. They cleared up the room a little bit. But, Teddy, I think he's only really, like, his cap hit is like 1 year. So, like, if they really love somebody, they may go up and get him. But really, it sounds like Carolina is looking at Isaiah Simmons. They said Matt Rule loves positionless players. That's, like, one of his favorite things. That was even before, like, all this stuff came out. So, like, could you imagine how much more he could love Isaiah Simmons if he likes positionless players?
Well, they had said, by the way, that's what they talked about, whereas if the Giants were to go offensive line here and then a couple of quarterbacks roll, it would be the dream scenario for the Carolina Panthers to be able to get Simmons at 7, just sitting there and waiting for him to fall to them. Interestingly enough, too, is you always talk about those ties, right? We win games, we beat Washington. So now we'll know right in our own division, we're going to get a firsthand look 2 times a year at the player that maybe could have been a Giant. On the other side of things, in Carolina, this is a coach that a lot of people wanted the Giants to go after, right? Do whatever it took to get him in the door. Now, he potentially could end up with a player that a lot of Giants fans want, Isaiah Simmons, depending on what we do here at the 4th overall pick. So we're going to have a lot of threads to pull on throughout the offseason and heading into the year that are going to be, these benchmark comparisons. Last year worked out for us. You take Daniel Jones, by the end of the year, you feel really good about it. As it stands right now, we're just going to start to get the information that we can rack our brains about for the next couple of months.
Adam, what you're talking about is coming to fruition. The Giants are still on the clock. There's 2 minutes to go. Are they just sitting there being like, we know who we're going to take if nobody wants this pick, and we're just going to wait as long as humanly possible to make the pick?
I haven't been doing a lot of this throughout the broadcast, but as I mentioned, my We Got Nets partner Doug Norrie was going to be doing nothing but texting me in annoyance. And his last one was, you're saying about, what are we trying to do? What are the Giants trying to do? Gettleman furiously trying to figure out how his mouse works right now. That's where. So he actually tried to make the pick 7 minutes ago.
The joke is on Doug, because it's just taking Dave a while to flip through the 3-ring binder like as feverishly as humanly possible just to make sure he's making the right move. It's not about the mouse. It's about the 3-ring binder. Like, if it gets stuck, when it gets stuck in the little,
all the pages get bunched up, and you don't know, have you slid too far past?
You're trying to flip too many pages at once, and then you're like, no, I gotta do this. Oh, the pick is in.
Just over a minute left on the clock. Do they still say the pick is in, or do they say trade if it's a trade? Right?
It says pick is in. It could be traded. It could be moved. We don't know.
All right. So what? So go ahead, call it. Who is it going to be?
Isaiah Simmons. Who do you think it's going to be?
I tend to agree it's Simmons. I do. I want it to be Thomas. I tend to agree it's Simmons.
Would you be more upset with Simmons or Wills?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I don't know if I'd be upset with Wills. My only thing about him is that you're talking about, even though they say he was protecting the blind side of college, he still has to then move over at some point and learn the left tackle position. So some level of, learning curve for him. I really, there's not a lot to be upset about. It's just the difference of if they go with Simmons right now, it's fine. And I can be excited about that. But then I immediately pivot. And this does blend into some of the things that I talked about. A guy like Isaiah Wilson, or in the second round, are the Giants going to have to package something to get back into the back end of the first round to figure out a tackle for themselves? Or are they saying that they like Soldier enough and they brought in Fleming and Gates to work out the right side of the line? All these pieces that we talk about behind the scenes. If they go with Simmons, the first thing is they're more confident in the offensive line as currently constructed than maybe we are from the outside. And then at the top of the second round, you're going to learn something as well, right? So you're already going to get some type of impression about where the organization feels and how Joe Judge came in, did his evaluations, and determined, where he believed the best value was for the Giants. I like this guy. He's got a black wall around him. That's right.
Look at Gettleman. They brought in a couple extra TVs. I like what I'm seeing already for Gettleman. He's throwing on his glasses just to make sure he can rifle through the binder a little bit more effectively. Make sure he can read. Is it Andrew Thomas? Is it Thomas Andrew? Like, who am I drafting? Right? Like, that's.
He's got a napkin in his hand. He's not sure what that says.
Well, was it a napkin or was it a mask? Is he practicing social distancing? Like, there's a lot of things going on here. There's a lot of layers to this pick.
Dave, you only have to socially distance if you're around somebody. He's like, the most important person I can distance myself from is myself, in fact.
Here we go, Adam. Here it is.
The New York Giants select Andrew Thomas.
Bang, baby! All right!
Yeah.
Woo!
Tell me that.
Yes!
Woo, baby!
Guess what? That is $100 in Mr. Andy Mac's pocket. Adam, who told you to bet that? Who told you?
You better believe it. And thankfully, as a partner on the One Giant podcast, we split all of our bets right down the middle. Fantastic.
That's what I'm talking about.
I tell you what, man. Listen, a little bit of shame on us, right? Because we wavered on our opinion on where we thought the Giants would go. But you and I both, throughout this entire process, have been saying time and time again that Andrew Thomas was the right selection for the Giants. That's just what we talked about every time we did our mock drafts. Every time that we went through player evaluations, we didn't necessarily look at where he had slipped on the board. I feel pretty good about this from a lot of standpoints. First and foremost, the Giants have their future starting left tackle. Now he's locked in there. The next decade plus, you have Daniel Jones blindside protected. And I also like the fact that we correctly worked through our material, man. We identified the best possible fit for the New York Football Giants.
It makes me feel like what we're doing makes sense. I literally told people today there was only 2 bets that I would take. And one, I said to you, right at 7 o'clock, Andrew Thomas moving up in terms of being first offensive lineman taken. I knew that was going to happen. I got him at plus 850. He went number 4. Perfect. The second one, I'm going to plug what I think is going to happen later. T. Higgins, wide receiver from the University of Clemson. Will he go in the first round? Yes or no? I am very bullish that he will go on the back end of this first round. But we're talking about the New York Giants. They made the right selection. Andrew Thomas is a 10-year starter at left tackle. This makes me so happy that we're investing in the offensive line. This is the player that I wanted them to take. outside of trading back to 6 or 7, accumulating more assets, and still getting Andrew Thomas, I could not be more excited about what the Giants just did.
No, and as Dave Gettleman tries to slip on his mask, but he's having a hard time. No, man, I 100% agree with you. Go back and look at it. We know you and I have had discussions, some debates around Nate Soldier, but I stood on that for the entire season, into the offseason and building up to this draft, that if you're going to have your franchise quarterback, if you're going to have a stud running back like Saquon Barkley in the backfield, you need to fix the line and fix the line now. And that's what they just did. Just this alone, you can now go to the second and third rounds and allow a center position to be an area of need, but not something you have to go get right now, because you've immediately improved an entire side of your offensive line. And you and I talked about this as well, right? What is the impact now on Hernandez working in tandem with a tackle like Andrew Thomas as they both try to improve their game and build that continuity across the line?
You know what's funny is I'm getting about 20 texts because a lot of my friends are like, oh, you do the One Giant podcast. Do you have any inside information? Give me the picks. Give me the money. And I said, listen, there's only 2 things that I really like. And one of them is I think Andrew Thomas will be the first offensive tackle taken. And I think T. Higgins will go in the first round. And I just got a text from a buddy that he just bought a new set of golf clubs, literally in the last 1.5 minutes off of the Andrew Thomas pick.
There you go. See?
Congratulations, Dave Hunter, on your new set of golf clubs. Really appreciate it.
That's a One Giant podcast sportscaster stream shout out. Congratulations, sir. By the way, again, much like how we split everything 50-50 on the One Giant podcast, I have access to half of your clubs. I prefer the top half, not the bottom.
So now the Dolphins are sitting here at 5, and it's clearly got to be Tua, right? I mean, there's no question in my mind that Tua is being picked here. What's your thought?
I would assume so. Listen, again, you always think back. What was the initial news that you were hearing about it? It was that the Dolphins want to make that move. They want to get their franchise quarterback in there. As long as you're comfortable with the injury concerns, as long as you feel as though he's going to come back from that healthier than ever, he is the clear-cut best quarterback prospect in this draft, and I would assume that you're going to hear his name get called for Miami here right now.
2006, when as a unit, Louis Riddick, they decided to pass on Drew Brees because they didn't clear his shoulder. They went with the safer pick in Dante Culpepper, and let's just say we all know how that worked out. Drew Brees is still going strong and setting records for the Saints. As an organization, Louis, you've been in these meetings. There's a medical issue. How do you weigh the medical versus the talent?
As we check in on a couple of these information, same thing. I got a little bit of communicating to do here on the back end. Hopefully everyone's just screaming if you're a Giants fan right now. So take some time, enjoy yourself, soak it in.
Football field. And I think when you're picking in the top 5 here, obviously you're going to be a little bit cautious as far as saying, hey, look, we don't even know if he's going to make it to a second contract. Okay, we don't know if he's going to do that. But maybe in that first contract, he just sets the world on fire. If we get lucky and he does learn how to get the ball out of his hands faster and take care of himself, we may have that generational guy. We may have
unbelievable. Andrew Thomas, they made the right move. I knew he was the most polished guy of all of them, and it just blows my mind. He was, 8.5 to 1 when I got him. He was 6 to 1 earlier. He moved down to 3 to 1. Everyone should have seen the trends that were happening. Andrew Thomas was the best offensive tackle in the country the entire year, and all of a sudden they thought it would change just for combine reasons and things like that.
Well, listen, and we've talked about this, right? When you think about the way players rise and fall based on combine performance alone, and you can always make the case that a guy improves his stock through the combine. A guy like Chase Young is a great Claypool, is a great example of that, right? Runs that 40 times, shows that he has speed as a big wide receiver at 238 pounds. That's great. But the one thing that shouldn't be happening is if you have a solid combine performance, you shouldn't be getting diminished from the combine into the draft. And at the start of this, Andrew Thomas was at the top of almost everyone's list. He did nothing to devalue himself at the combine. And to me, I respect the idea that if in Gettleman's eyes and the Giants organization, they did the scouting, did the research, and they weren't going to allow a great 40 time from Tristan Wirfs to throw them off, or Mekhi Becton running that insane time at 370 pounds, right? Stick with what you know. Trust that you've been scouting this guy for his entire college career and make the pick.
Here's the pick.
Let's see. Now, this indicates to me again that the Chargers were not necessarily that big in on Tua, because because there's no reason why the Giants wouldn't have maybe fielded an offer to move back a couple of spots at the top of this draft. It wasn't going to hurt them if you're talking about two teams that are going to be needy. Now, again, the other thing that we highlighted, and it's worth remembering, is that if, say, the Giants had an offer from the Chargers, you are running the risk of the Chargers taking Tua and then the Dolphins saying at 5, well, then we might as well address the offensive line and potentially taking Thomas before you have an opportunity to get him at 6. So we'll find out on the back end what offers maybe Gettleman had on his desk, but that's probably the consideration you have to make. If you really wanted Thomas, you can't risk having someone else get in between you and him. And there's enough offensive line needy teams here, Dolphins included.
I'm just so happy. I'm
ecstatic.
I'm happy. Like, I thought they were going to take Wills or somebody else, and I would have been like, you know what, at least they addressed the offensive line. They got the guy we wanted. Like, you can't ask for more than that, and I am very happy right now. And it makes me feel like no matter what else happens this first round, there may be crazy things that are going on. The Giants are pointing up. They're heading in the right direction.
I'm not going to throw shade at who made this statement on Twitter. I'll leave it out there for people to find out, but has said this for the past week. Offensive tackle Anthony Thomas is the most logical choice for the Giants at number 4. I'm not going to tell you who put that out there, but usually when I speculate about where the Giants are going to go, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that I tell him who his first name is.
Right, yes. It's confusing. He has 2 first names, so it gets confusing. But, yeah, if you're going to invest a number 4 pick and probably tens of millions of dollars, you might want to know that he's the guy, right?
I'm just, dude, again, I'll be interested to see how some fans feel as far as Simmons being available there for you. I think that when you talk about, for the most part, most draft classes, the position of linebacker, regardless of versatility or the skill of that player, is not typically someone that gets taken in a top 5 selection. You know, you're talking about a top 10 talent, that's certainly fine, and you can approach it that way. As it stands right now, Carolina is probably going to be in a pretty good position here, unless the Chargers maybe take a chance on taking Simmons to bring him in to help their defensive side of the ball. Carolina could be in a great spot to pick up Simmons and get a nice defensive weapon for themselves without having to chase.
Yeah, this is an interesting pick for the Chargers. I don't think they're taking Justin Herbert. I know a lot of people thought that they were going to. I don't think they will.
Another opportunity, too, by the way, for again, Herbert, we can talk about the speculation, right? At the start of things, they had him up there, neck and neck with Tua. Now, you can say on tape or film, watch all these things, whatever the case may be.
But did they?
Initially, they did, though.
Everyone is telling me that everyone has Justin Herbert next to Tua. I'm not buying it. I'm telling you, Adam. Justin Herbert is not going in the top 10.
No, it's fine if he doesn't. I'm just saying at the start, when the first big boards were coming out, everybody had Herbert there in the top 10 of this draft. It was unanimously understood. Now, you can say whether or not he fell down from that, and rightfully so.
Adam, those are prognosticators. Those are not talent and evaluators and scouts. They all had Andrew Thomas going 15 and 20. And so my point to you is, I have not heard from any front office that they love Justin Herbert. Like, yeah, he went into the year being a guy that everybody looked at. He did not impress me. I honestly believe, and I might, go on my phone and put my money where my mouth is and say Jordan Love is going before him. Like, I just don't see. I mean, I could be wrong right now. The pick could be in, and the Chargers could take Justin Herbert, and I'll look like a fool, right? That's very easily going to happen.
Never back down. Never back down.
But you know what? I have conviction. I had conviction about Andrew Thomas. I have conviction about Justin Herbert, and I'm sticking with it, Adam. That's right. My brother-in-law just pointed out I am 1 for 1. Andrew Thomas. That feels like a home run.
Hey. One Giant podcast is 1 for 1, friend.
Of course, OGP, 1 for 1.
That's it. So now let's just, while we have a little bit of time here before the Chargers come in, what does this dictate anything for you as far as the top of the second round and the and where the Giants are going to want to go at the 36th pick tomorrow?
Wait, Adam, you got to look at Chris Mortensen.
He shaved his head a couple days ago. I've already seen how Chris Mortensen looks.
But he does look like he's like, if you do not give up the $10,000 in the next 24 hours, I will be murdered. This is not a joke. Please leave unmarked bills on the front P.O. box of this. Like, he looks like he is reading a ransom note right now.
It's an interesting choice. It's one of the ones that I considered, but again, for that exact reason, Courtney told me, please don't look like I'm holding you captive inside the apartment by shaving your head right now.
Oh my goodness, that was so good. That was almost too good.
Pick is in for the Chargers.
It's not going to be Herbert. It can't be Herbert. If it's Herbert, I'm going to be disappointed because I just believe that nobody likes him the same way that I do.
Now, let's play it out though. Can the Chargers be in the Giants' position last year, where they like this guy and they studied the tape and they believe in him?
I mean, anything's possible, right? Blankenship could go right now. We've talked about this before. Anything is possible. When you watch the tape on Herbert, you're like, oh, he's tall. Oh, he's got an arm. And then you're like, but he doesn't really throw it very well. He doesn't complete that many passes. He doesn't win that many games. Like,
I love that all the quarterbacks that were waiting the longest, except for Lamar, were terrible.
Aaron Rodgers waited a while too.
Aaron and Lamar are like the two. All these other guys.
I like that they've shown 2 Cleveland Browns quarterbacks now already in the list of quarterbacks that have to wait, and then we're not successful.
I mean, are they foreshadowing that Herbert's going right now, or are they
to the Cleveland Browns?
Here we go. I think they're going to shock the world and not take a quarterback.
You can wait. You can also wait a year when you have. You can also wait a year when you have like Tyrod Taylor. Like he's a good, bridge quarterback scenario. Yeah,
he is. But you got to have a guy on the roster that you like.
No, for sure. But I mean, I guess I'm trying to think now. Like, and I honestly don't have any names on the tip of my tongue as far as quarterbacks that'll be coming out in next year's draft.
Wait, Trevor Lawrence doesn't just roll off the tongue as like one of the best quarterbacks like to ever come out. He might be one of the best prospects.
But I'm talking about the Chargers aren't going to be in a position to take. They're going to have to do a lot of moving in order to make that happen. So if you're the Chargers, you have to be weighing also that situation of, okay, we're picking at 6 right now. We're probably going to be picking closer to 10 or 12 next year.
The pick is in.
The 2020 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Chargers select Justin Herbert.
Oh,
shame on you. Oh, look.
Yeah, baby.
We have in Keith McPherson. What's up, man?
Just watched the Giants take a great tackle. Just saw Tua tank for Tua. Thins up. Now we're waiting for the Chargers to take Herbert, most likely.
Yeah,
how are you guys doing?
They just took Herbert, so they just made it official for the Chargers. Yep.
Is it different? Like, so I'm watching ESPN. We just had another stream where I think NFL Network was coming in quicker, and then these ESPN updates, like the alerts are coming in. Yeah, now like at the top, Herbert.
Oh, okay.
So.
Andy, what are you watching? Are you watching on NFL Network?
So I've got Twitter going. I've got ESPN going. ESPN seems to be the fastest one that I'm getting information from. So
it's funny. It's just funny because I'm watching ESPN too, but I am hearing the picks through the feed from Andy slightly before I see it on my TV screen. So I don't know what's happening. But yeah, man, listen. So Keith McPherson, welcome into the One Giant podcast stream. Talking Nets. Obviously, you were just doing some other streaming as well around the draft.
Yeah,
we're super excited about getting Andrew Thomas. We feel like that's what we were hoping for. It's what we were calling for. So we checked that box. You've got a ways to wait, but I already told the story about your perspective on Jerry Jones' situation going into draft night, and probably being the more concerning of the two between him and Dave Gettleman.
Is it not amazing? Jerry's like, hey guys, I got this. Like, go home, like have milk and cookies, warm milk, a little bit of cookies. Like, I got this. Right?
It's so on brand. I've been a Cowboys fan for 30 years. Like, it's so on brand, and I'm so tired of it, but there's nothing I can do about it and just hope that it was a headline, and that's not really what's happening because Jerry Jones, there's no way he knows how to use whatever app or Zoom or whatever technology is in front of him by himself. Someone has to be there assisting him, helping him out. And I think that headline that floated out was just for Dallas Cowboys fans to just be like, what are we doing here?
The hope has to be, too, because Andy highlighted earlier that Cincinnati Bengals owner sent Joe Burrow a handwritten letter informing him earlier this week that he was going to be drafted. So I think the most terrifying scenario for Cowboys fans would be that Jerry Jones writes down his pick and just puts it in the mailbox. When they come up on the board, 4 minutes left, he goes, "I put it in the box. I flipped up the tag."
I mean, at 17, we're too deep in it to really know who exactly is going to be available.
Yeah.
There's a few guys that we're looking at. The pick is going to be defense. I mean, I could be wrong now. Like Jerry could pick Johnny Manziel. It's going to be a defensive pick, but like it's about to start shaking out. It depends who's available. Like the first corner is taken off the board, but no D linemen have gone yet. Like we need corners, we need D line. So we'll see when we get there, but there's no way to know. That's why when I saw that, I'm like, okay, Jerry's going to lock himself in a room and handle this on his own. That's probably not the best thing to do. Like you're going to need a couple people telling you a couple things about, okay, like, this guy dropped, or okay, we remember we talked to this guy, Jerry, let's make a splash here and take this guy. So
Keith, what if Jerry is thinking this is like absentee balloting during an election, and he's like, I will take CeeDee Lamb, and he just puts it in 10 picks early, and he's like, as long as I mail this pick in like a day,
he might, man. He's gonna email Goodell right now and reserve CeeDee Lamb.
These are my best three.
So like, I'm the first guy to send you the email, Roger. Like, just in case the picks come in, like I sent the ballot in first, right?
I've been saying all week, what can go wrong will. So if there's any way to just mess this up, I feel like the Cowboys are the type of team to figure out how to mess it up. Right in the middle of the pack. Okay, so now Herbert's pick is in, so we should get the next team on the clock. Who's it? Arizona? I don't know. I actually like the speed now. Like, the first 26 minutes, we didn't get a pick. It was the whole intro thing, and I tweeted out, I'm like,
it was brutal.
I'm like, oh man, this is going to go to 11, 12 o'clock. This is going to take a while, but they're moving along pretty quickly. We haven't seen any trades yet, so the first 6 picks are just straight up like, know who they want. But I don't know. I'm hoping that it gets interesting, and I'm hoping that if it plays out in the Cowboys' favor.
Well, and I'm assuming that we're going to see Simmons come off the board to the Panthers here at 7, just because that it makes a lot of sense for the team. Yeah. So if that goes that route as well, one of the positions that the Cowboys do have as a need for them, you talk about defensive line, you're benefiting from a guy like Derek Brown. He's not going to be there for you at 17, but the fact that he's arguably the top 3 talent in this draft, and you're going to see him go closer to 10 than 1. Yeah. There's other defensive linemen in there behind him. I think, to your point, there's going to be a lot of value for the Cowboys at 17, as much as I hate to acknowledge it.
I like the Kinlaw kid out of South Carolina.
Yep. And that's a very achievable one at 17 as well.
Yeah, that dude is a freak. He's got a ridiculous story. I like him. Who else? The kid out of Penn State.
Gross Matos.
He's probably going to go, edge rusher. He's probably going to go somewhere like, later in the first round of the draft. Maybe someone takes him earlier. What other guys? We were looking at the kid, Kavon Chasen out of LSU. Patrick Queen, linebacker out of LSU. I'm interested in the safeties. Now, that's where I think some of these safeties can fall through the cracks, like Grant Delpit or Xavier McKinney. Those are 2 guys that I've had my eye on through this whole process. If we could get Grant Delpit or Xavier McKinney, that's the pick at 17. Jamal Adams, that whole thing. It was fun to talk about for a week, but the Jets aren't trading us right. Jamal Adams tonight. So we could get a safety. I'd be cool with that. If we could get a D lineman, I'd be cool with that as well.
Now, Keith, what do you think? Obviously, you have a couple division picks that have already been in, with the Redskins taking Chase Young, Giants taking Andrew Thomas.
Yeah.
Is that kind of expected? Is it, do you cringe at either one as a Cowboy fan, being like, don't like that for the Cowboys in general? Or are you kind of looking at it like better than taking that guy?
I was just with the Talking Giants podcast. I was like helping them do their live stream, and I was listening to all the Giants talk. And I honestly didn't want you guys to take Simmons, because I know that was a lot of the talk, that you guys need a linebacker. Simmons was the guy. And I was looking at Simmons when he was at Clemson, and I'm like, no, this dude's a freak. He can play multiple positions. I hope they don't get a guy like him. Now, that scares me more than a guy like the kid Thomas from Georgia, who is a beast. And who was the other kid? Wills from
Cedric Wills from Alabama. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's better than that kid. And if you're gonna take Saquon and then take your franchise quarterback, you got to take someone to protect them. You can't hustle backwards here. I watched the Cowboys draft 3 straight drafts and build our line. I watched Jerry Jones want Johnny Manziel and Stephen Jones say, no, we have to take Zach Martin here, So I like the fact that you guys went with a tackle. It doesn't scare me much in division. What does scare me is that the Redskins have Chase Young, and
what a beast.
This guy gets to go home and play where he went to high school. And I think if they let him off the leash, he's going to be a problem for this league. He's going to be a problem for us in a division. We're going to have to see him twice a year, and he's going to wreak havoc. He's one of those guys that, like, they say, like, looks like he could be a gold jacket guy.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about always more concerned about,
Carolina Panthers.
Oh, where'd they go?
Isaiah Simmons, and they shock everybody. And with the 7th pick, they take Derek Brown, the defensive lineman.
That's what they just did?
Yeah.
They just went and took the
Matt
defensive
Rule. See?
Well, so I
mean, that's not a bad pick, but for a Clemson kid to land in North Carolina when Luke Kuechly just retired, like, you could use a linebacker that is from the
home run and the
that seems like it makes a lot of sense, but hey, they're thinking something else. But here's a Dallas Cowboys Panthers reference. Dontari Poe, Gerald McCoy left there, came to Dallas. They need D linemen. They need interior D linemen, D tackles.
It's interesting, man. It's interesting to think about the way it shakes out, because you're always more concerned about teams in the division getting after your quarterback than you are about some of the other things. So while it may protect Daniel Jones potentially, the bigger risk for Dallas and Dak Prescott is having Chase Young coming after him off the edge. The other, you mentioned about other positions for Dallas as you start to work through this from a cornerback standpoint. Everybody knows Okudah was that highest ranking cornerback on the board. If you see a guy like C.J. Henderson there at 17 for Dallas, are you willing to do that as well? And then I'll throw another one out to you. This is a hypothetical; it doesn't play out. But if Jets come knocking on your door and they say, "Well, we'll give you Jamal Adams for the 17th overall pick,"
yeah, definitely do that. They're not going to do that.
Yeah, but you jump at it.
I mean, definitely do that. We tried. We've been playing this game now for a while. We were looking at Earl Thomas. And the Seahawks 2 years ago wanted the pick, and we wouldn't do it. And then what we did do was throw that pick to get Amari Cooper. And after you spend a first-round pick on Amari Cooper, you have to pay him. And that was the difference between us paying him or Byron Jones. We still haven't paid Dak yet. There's not enough money really to go around. So if we were to somehow get a trade with Jamal Adams, we'd have to pay him too. I just don't see it going down.
It's a little pricey at that point.
Yeah, Jerry's got a lot of money, but there's a salary cap.
And especially like you said, if you get a guy in the first round like an Xavier McKinney, and you say, okay, we're going to plug in this jack of all trades at the safety position for us, and we'll get that 5th-year control on him as well. We can get our own version of Jamal Adams without having to pay that price tag just yet. And that's a lot of what we talk about, Leonard Williams for us and signing him to that franchise tag, all the Yannick Ngakoue conversations. And it's like always saying about how, what are we going to be looking at in terms of paying? How many positions can you pay? You can't bring in Yannick Ngakoue and pay him $17 to $20 million a year, knowing that you have other contracts coming up down the line.
You can't pay everyone. And then this league now has kind of built a formula, kind of figured out a way to hustle, look at the Chiefs. They won the Super Bowl on Pat Mahomes' rookie deal. They're going to have to pay him, but everyone knows that, right? Even with the Rams last year, the Rams got to the Super Bowl on Jared Goff's rookie deal. They had to pay him. The Cowboys were not able to get to the Super Bowl on Dak's rookie deal. They got to pay him. They franchise tagged him. First quarterback we've ever franchise tagged, I believe. There is a game to the money. There is a game to the, certain position players and where you draft them and how much you pay them. And, they say don't pay running backs. Well, Jerry had to pay Zeke last year. Zeke was going to hold out. Zeke was in Cabo, so he kind of forced their hand. But, if you can figure out, like for the Cowboys example, at least, if we can figure out how to draft a dog like Xavier McKinney, a guy who was a leader at Alabama, you already know what you're getting with him. He's a couple years younger than Jamal Adams, and he's not going to cost you as much. And you plug him in with this team that already has Pro Bowl guys, stars, veterans now, and then a whole veteran coaching staff to really bring him up to speed as a rookie and really bring him along. I think that's the move versus trying to get Jamal Adams, and then you got another heavy payday coming.
As we see the Cardinals pick come in, where they will go 8th overall. Let's see. They get Simmons. They got Simmons.
Wow.
That is that's just surprising because I didn't think that Simmons was going to get past the Carolina Panthers to begin with.
I mean, that's great for them. Shore up that defense.
Yeah, they need it. They need the value on the defensive side of the ball for sure. I'm happy that he went there because we were talking about before about if the Giants, Giants pass on Simmons, if Carolina took him, then that Matt Rule connection with could have been the Giants head coach, then they have, the defensive pick that you maybe want to have as well. So that's an interesting one there.
So we're already seeing you take the most talented player, even if that's not exactly the need. Simmons slips from 7. They're taking him at 8. Okay, you guys don't want him? We need him. We need him. That kid's he's going to be one of those players that you see in the Pro Bowl. Whether they put him at linebacker, whether he walks up, he can play safety. He played corner, safety, linebacker, and rushed the passer a little bit at Clemson. So that tells you he's ready to play anywhere. They'll probably put him on special teams.
Look at this. 286 snaps at slot corner, 218 at safety, 160 at outside linebacker, 121 at inside linebacker, even played 17 snaps at corner at the college level. I mean, they're going to take some of those options off the board for you, but safety, linebacker, and edge rusher are all going to be spots that this kid gets lined up on. So listen, and unfortunately the Giants, of course, will be playing the Cardinals this year, so we'll get a firsthand look at them. But man, listen, that's a quality pick. And it's funny too, when you think about, areas of need, top of the draft, Giants go with an offensive tackle. Fantastic. But at a certain point, teams like the Arizona Cardinals, I bet they have their board all lined up. And like you said, but if we see Simmons come here, if we see Okuda come here, there's going to be names they automatically have earmarked off that they say, if this guy ends up being available, go ahead and drop the rest of the board and just draft this player.
Yep. Gotta take him. Yeah, I didn't even realize they're showing this guy's college or his high school stuff. He was a track guy, so they said he won back-to-back state championships in the long jump. Like you're putting a freak athlete on your defense that is versatile, that gives you flexibility, and in today's NFL, you need that. Someone's got to chase down Lamar Jackson. Someone's also got to cover these tight ends that can fly. So like. It's very interesting, this kid. He's almost 6'4", 240, like moves well for a kid that size. I like him a lot. I'm glad that he didn't end up in division and the Giants didn't take him.
When you as we wait for the Jacksonville pick to come in, when you think about the Cowboys and signing Amari Cooper, do you have any issue with that kind of structure? I guess it ties into how you feel about Dak Prescott as well, but paying a wide receiver, it's just, historically that's never really works out for a team. And if it costs you at another position, it sometimes can be a bit of an issue. As of right now, there's still time to wait and keep Dak Prescott happy. But it feels like it has to feel weird that you paid Amari Cooper and you didn't take care of Dak Prescott this offseason, right?
Yeah, now I feel a few ways on it because there's a lot of Cowboys games that I watch where Dak and Amari just weren't on the same page. And I could probably name 10 receivers in this league that I think are better than Amari Cooper. Now he's on my team. I will say he's a great route runner. I think him and Dak need a little more time. They only had one full season last year together. I think they need more time. And like I said, I understand why we had to pay him. If you give up a first-round pick for a guy, you can't let that guy walk. And he was getting some serious interest. Like, in this offseason, there were teams that were going to pay him because they need the receiver. Like, he was going to go somewhere. But he said he wanted to be in Dallas. He says he wants to finish his career in Dallas. You gave up the pick for him. You got to pay him. And it just is what it is. Now, with Dak, I think Dak is going to get paid. I think Dak is going to get his money. I just don't know when, and I don't know how much. And I don't know how much they really value him as far as what the market is going to yield. People are saying Pat Mahomes is going to command $40 million a year. So like, I don't think Dak is worth like Dak. They said Dak had already turned down like $34 million a year. So,
I mean, when you look around and you go, can I argue Lamar Jackson obviously has a long ways to go as far as a pure passer standpoint, but I'm sure over the last 2 years, Dak Prescott has had younger players at the quarterback position look better than him.
Yeah.
And it's not even a knock on him, but it's just you've seen some other guys get more talented and kind of show up past you. And it could be because of the team around him and the weapons that they were giving him before you had Cooper. Because to your point, Cooper looked a lot better once he got out of Oakland and came to Dallas. Like all of a sudden, it was like a reminder of, oh, that's right, this guy is that talented. You just forget about him when he's on Oakland and Derek Carr and the issues that you're going to have there. But if you're Dak Prescott, I don't know, like $34 million a year. I mean, that feels like a pretty reasonable, like, hey, man.
As we speak, there's a Dak Prescott sleep number commercial on. Being the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, you have a sleep number deal. You have a Dannon yogurt deal. You have a Gatorade deal. You have he's got the money that comes along with the position. Where I think even Skip Bayless said, he's like, give him a little discount, Dak. Like you're taken care of. You've got all these commercials and all these other things that come with being the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Give him a little hometown discount. He's not going to give him a discount. It's gone too far. I think the franchise tag gets him $33 million. I might be wrong about that. $33 million might be where it's at. I'm not exactly sure, but they got to figure it out.
Right in the wheelhouse of where the long-term deal is going to be. And I just wonder about, probably from who's the example of that. Now you talk about a running back at that point.
Kirk Cousins played this game with the Redskins for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then he went and got paid by Minnesota. And people were like, oh, he fleeced them. And I'm like, no, he went and he joined a good team. They had the money for him. They're a playoff team. They won some games. He's happy there. And then he just got another deal. He just got an extension. So I'm like, he won. He bet on himself and he won. He had 2 years of getting franchise tagged in Washington, I believe. And then when he hit free agency, there was a team waiting for him. And a better team. Those Redskins team, he did go to the playoffs with the Redskins 1 year, but those Redskins teams were nowhere near as complete as the Vikings team that he joined. So, I mean, it works out for some guys. It doesn't.
Well, I was going to say, it's a bad example because it's running back, but when Le'Veon Bell was like, that's it, Steelers, I'll sit out. He took all that time to end up basically getting a deal that wasn't worth what they were willing to offer him in Pittsburgh to stay there. But to your point, that idea of Kirk Cousins, man, there's no way. If anybody who's in Washington, even Chase Young, I'd always be thinking about what potentially could be my option down the road because some franchises are just historically stuck in a permanent rut. Even the Giants have obviously had our struggles lately, but we come up for air and grab you a Super Bowl every once in a while. The Redskins have been such a poorly run franchise that you're Kirk Cousins, to your point, all right, I went to a better team. I made good money. I got a second contract from them. And even if I never reached the pinnacle of it, I'm still a lot happier in Minnesota than I was ever going to be in Washington. I'll be really curious to see if Dak Prescott at any point gets to the place where he's like, I wonder, looks around the landscape of the NFL and says, I wonder if there's an option out there for me that I might want to, take a chance on.
Yeah, there will be. These teams are changing quarterbacks every couple of years, right? Like a guy like Jameis Winston could be the number 1 overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner, national championship. He's out of there, and they put Tom Brady there. And now Tom Brady will be out of there. I think Tom Brady's got 1 year there. I think this 1 year is going to be the year. And then somewhere in the second year, whether it's halfway through the season or they're going to be like, enough. This guy is washed. He's done.
Yeah.
But there's going to be open seats. And the thing about Dak, I just don't want to see this happen to Dak. Dak was a 4th round draft pick. Dak saved us from Romo. I remember when we gave Romo his 6-year, $100 million, and I remember just being like, damn, I like Romo for some of the Houdini stuff he does, but I don't want to be married to this guy. I don't want to be stuck with this guy. And Dak saved us from that. When we drafted Dak in the 4th round, I don't think anyone thought that he was going to be what he's become. He's one of the most winningest quarterbacks in the last 4 years of the NFL. The guy can run the ball. He can throw the ball. And he's got just leadership intangibles. He's just got this demeanor about him where, he knows how to speak to the media. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. And, he's just got this chip on his shoulder. I hope that he gets paid. I hope that he stays in Dallas. We're going to probably draft a quarterback this weekend. I don't think it's going to be the guy that takes his spot, but I think we're going to draft a quarterback. Oh, CJ Henderson just went 9.
Just saw that, replacing Jalen Ramsey, who exits. The Jacksonville Jaguars take C.J. Henderson. I mean, that's high relative to where he stood on the boards. The drop-off from an Okudah to a C.J. Henderson was markedly different. And on top of which, Jacksonville Jaguars have a pick at 20 as well. So you're talking about, making a claim here at 9 for your cornerback. depending on what they do at 20, I guess it all comes out in the wash. But that's an impressive choice. I'll say that. I did not have that being the case.
Me
this is the kind
either.
of guy that you thought be like I was just saying before about if the Cowboys were looking to maybe get a cornerback at 17.
We're thinking he could slip down to 17. He doesn't even get out of the top 10. The Jaguars need D linemen with Calais Campbell going to Baltimore, and they just they needed D lineman. They've had like a carousel there. The guy Fowler that left and went to LA. Like I thought they were for sure going to take a D lineman, but I think they were eyeing the only D lineman that has come off is Brown. So maybe they just wanted this kid. It makes sense. There's a lot of UF fans not far from Jacksonville.
Right. You are also you're combining the on the field as well as the community selection there.
Yep. The location matters. For years, I actually have family in Jacksonville, and there's a lot of UF fans not far from there. So that makes sense. You put a corner like that on that team to replace Jalen Ramsey, and he's already from Florida. Like it makes sense.
So as the Browns come up on the board, local New York team, the Jets will be up at 11 here in a minute. When you talk about Dak Prescott, do you think again talent level is there, but he's played behind one of the top offensive lines in the league consistently?
Yeah.
When you think about other quarterbacks that could be plugged in there, and you were saying about like I hope that this doesn't happen to him. Is it the hope that he got picked in the 4th round, saved you from Romo, but basically becomes an accidental bridge quarterback for this franchise where they're like, we'll franchise you once, we'll let you walk, and we'll try to replace you like we've done with a later round quarterback selection.
Yeah, and us Cowboys fans know the days of Drew Henson, Quincy Carter, Brad Johnson, John Kitna, Drew Bledsoe. It's like, come on.
Oh, God, yeah, you guys had a run there.
Yeah, Kellen Moore. Matt Castle, like we had some times where it was like, this isn't the answer, this is a fill-in. We'll do what we can with it. Dak is the guy. Dak saved us from Romo. Guys on his team love him. He was drafted with Zeke. Some people say Zeke carried him, but I just hope we can figure it out because we're not ready to find another guy. And like I said, we will draft another guy. But I mean, if they're not going to pay Dak, go get Cam Newton. Go get Cam.
Because it's always easier, right? It's always easy to think about what you could do when, it's always easy to look past what you have currently in front of you, right? Like, yeah. I wonder if we brought in a Cam Newton. Well, then you bring in Cam Newton and maybe he gets injured and whatever. You go, oh, right. One of the nice things about Dak Prescott was he was always on the field for us. All of a sudden you start to realize the things that you're giving up when you do that, as the Cleveland Browns take Jedrick Wills. So he'll line up there and complete.
Someone's got a block for Baker, man.
Yep, and they already made that other move on the left side. I'll fail to remember who they brought in there at the other tackle position for them, but they've solidified this offseason. Now they've given themselves the bookends of their offensive line. So they're putting themselves in about as good a position as you can. They had all those offensive weapons and couldn't piece it together last year. They're going to come into this season with multiple running backs in the backfield that can tote the ball. You've got your quarterback. You've got Landry. You've got OBJ. You've arguably still got the tight end that you only took a couple of years ago as well. And again, it's a team that the Giants will play this year. So plenty of teams getting better that you'll see on the schedule here. That's a nice pick there. It's interesting. That only makes the second offensive lineman that's come off the board. So now the Jets at 11, as they've talked about, opportunity they could take worse if they want to go offensive line, but the speculation around them maybe going wide receiver here too. Some of the tackles have taken a little bit longer, I think, to come off the board than initially thought. And I wonder if Thomas going to the Giants there at 4 kind of starts this idea that you're automatically going to go that way.
The New York Football Jets should take the first receiver off the board. Whoever they fancy, they should do that right now.
Pair them up.
We're outside of the top 10 now. Go grab that first receiver so the rest of the dominoes can fall.
And in my mind, Wills and Thomas were the two truly best tackles in that group because I know Mekhi Becton played left tackle at college, but at the end of the day, these are guys that were 100% starters at their position, are lockdown tackles. You look at Wirfs, they say kick him inside the guard and let him be dominant there. I'm not taking a risk on a guy that you maybe want to kick inside. And to your point, if you have Sam Darnold, you let Anderson go. You brought in Perryman. That's not a number one. I think they probably made a little bit of a fool's gold there by bringing him in off of a one fluky kind of good season for him. whether it's Jerry Jeudy, whoever you want. Like you said, once you have your franchise guy, give him the option. Give him the weapon.
burner. Take Ruggs. Go get the burner, because if you let go of Robbie Anderson, you need the deep threat. And I don't think they brought in Perriman and another receiver. I can't think of.
Yeah,
they'll probably show us up here, but those are like insurance guys to go along with like Jamison Crowder, and like those aren't game breakers. Those aren't highlight reel guys. Those are move the chains guys. They should go right now and take Ruggs.
Yeah, I just scrolled through their entire raw. They got Perriman, they got Doxson, Anunwa.
Doxson, that's who it was.
Go.
Josh Doxson from Washington.
There you go. Crowder, Bellamy, Smith, Chesson, Malone. And by the way, the only names that you really knew there were the first two that I said, and neither one of them are true number ones. Like you said, it's a security blanket for sure, but you need to get yourself a true number one.
You need a threat.
And remember too, as of right now, with Le'Veon Bell there, you're not exactly running out a young stud running back at this point either. So you're not in the position of a Dallas, right? We've got Amari Cooper, we got Dak Prescott, we got Zeke Elliott. Giants, we've taken our young quarterback in Daniel Jones. We got Barkley, right? We can still use that weapon on the outside potentially, but we have some nice options there. The Jets are offensive pieces away from being able to stay in games. And after the first 2 years were between injury and the just hilarious kissing disease of mono with Darnold, like this could be his first fully healthy season in the NFL, and it could be the most crucial season for him as well, as far as proving 100% that this is your franchise quarterback. So you better give him the option to do so.
Yeah, this is definitely the year. They got to give him weapons. They got to protect him some more. I think Le'Veon Bell, this is the year for him, like, to show us, do you still have it, or are your best days behind you? I think they're going to hold on to Jamal Adams and some of those other pieces on the defense. They should have Mosley healthy this year. They missed out on him last year. He got hurt very early. We'll see, man. I think the Jets can compete. That division now has changed. Tom Brady's outside of it. The Dolphins, we don't know what they're cooking up. The Bills look like they're going to be the ones to run the show, but you never know. They could sneak up. The Jets could sneak up on them. Are you streaming this on Sportscaster?
This is out there on Sportscaster, man.
I'm on your Sportscaster page. I don't think I see it. Maybe I'm on your NBA one.
Unfortunately, I travel in many circles on Sportscaster. It'll be under my direct name. Hopefully,
let me look it up. I'm just trying to share it.
Yeah, and watch me find out that all this time these check boxes in the corner of my screen are just phantoms of my imagination.
Okay, let's see. I think I follow your We Got Nets one, and I follow your namesake.
Yeah, that would Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, of course not. If you search, man, it's too many of them. If you search Giant, just search Giant, and it'll come up the One Giant podcast.
Okay.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah, One Giant podcast. Got it.
There we go. Yeah, we're cooking up over there. Thank goodness.
Okay, live. Yeah, I'll share it right now.
There we go. Oh man, listen, I want to sweat this out with you into the Cowboys. That's now I feel like I'm loosely invested in my division rival right now. As well. Oh look, and we can try to welcome back. Let's welcome back Andy Mackiewicz.
There we go.
I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I almost forgot. I forgot that you broadcasted with me to begin with. I've been doing so many streams with Keith around the NBA that this became very second nature for me.
Listen. I heard you guys talking about how the Jets are going to pick a wide receiver. They are not picking a wide receiver. They are picking an offensive lineman.
I would like them to.
Picking a lineman. Get it out of your head. Like, yes, they need weapons, but Wirfs or Becton is far better. Their line is almost as bad as the Giants' line. They are going with an offensive lineman here.
Maybe they will, man. But if I'm sitting there after the two top, as I was saying to Keith, the two top tackles will come off the board. The next two tackles still have some level of curiosity around. Now, I will say in terms of Wirfs, because they have offensive line needs across the board, even kicking him inside to guard would be okay to do. But you'd be much more comfortable doing that middle of the first round, not necessarily at 11. 11 is you're outside the top 10. There's a value pick to be had here. I'll be curious, man. There's been some switch ups though, man. How about C.J. Anderson going to the Jaguars?
I mean, Henderson was a big surprise, but they lose A.J. Boye, they lose Jalen Ramsey, They lose them both via trade. But they have no cornerbacks. So like going up and getting and addressing it.
They are showing Henry Ruggs on the screen. Keith's selection for the Jets. They are highlighting him right now on the camera.
It's CeeDee Lamb, but appreciate that you.
Oh no! It just switched
Lamb.
over. It just switched over. It just switched over. They showed Henry Ruggs there, sir. I told you I'm on a slight delay from your TV. You can't box me in. If Roger Goodell waves at that screen behind him one more time.
I Becton, offensive tackle, Louisville.
Perfect.
The pick is in. You got that confirmed?
That's it.
I have it confirmed. Gentlemen, that's why
Oh my God, look at the size of this
the
guy.
Jets and Giants bringing in two of the top tackles.
That's why I got to come back in and set the record straight with you two gentlemen, because you go off into fairyland and you keep dreaming of wide receivers going early.
Because as soon as the first one goes, that's when the dominoes start falling. And anyone that thinks they need one, coming to get them.
You're right. The second that CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy goes, like, there's going to be a run of like 5 wide receivers through Justin Jefferson that are going to go.
Oh, here we go. Las Vegas is next. They're about to take a receiver for sure. They have to. They have to. No Antonio Brown. Someone's got to take the top off of Gruden's offense.
I mean, is there nothing more perfect than Henry Ruggs running like a 4.2 40 and going
to the Raiders? We've seen this before,
right?
The fastest guy.
Look at these Mekhi Becton highlights of him playing basketball. This dude is 6'7", 370, and they just showed him flashing the steps on the court.
40.
Oh my God. Listen, they did the Jets did the reasonable thing. Well, no. By the way, when they first flashed to him, that's I was like, oh my God, look at the size of this guy. I thought it was, but his father turned around. I was like, oh,
that's his dad. His pops is huge.
Oh my God, he's a beast. Oh, listen, it's good for the Jets. Vegas is on the clock. I was just saying to Keith, Andy, that I'm getting into a weird spot here where I'm anticipating the Cowboys pick. Like now I'm actually waiting for the Cowboys to get on the clock in some weird way.
It's coming. I mean, this is rolling now. I honestly was thinking this was going to crawl, and it's moving fast, so that's good.
I do have to admit, and I think Andy would say as well, that we burned through a lot of what I thought was enough content to take us through the start of this draft. By the time this thing started, I was like, and so now the first pick, man, and 25 minutes from now, we're going to know where the Giants are going to go.
I like this kid from everything I've seen. Even just those basketball clips of him and him running. He's the same guy that had the diluted sample.
No, he had a failed sample. The diluted sample was Zach Bond, the linebacker.
Oh, okay. So why'd his sample fail? Do you know that?
They said, the speculation is that it was a marijuana sample, which.
Okay. So he burns a little bit. That's no problem.
Yeah.
They changed the rules around it anyway.
Right.
Yeah. Nobody cares about that anyway. And you know what's funny is a lot of players have come out and been like, even guys that have just retired, they're like, literally, we talked to all the GMs. Nobody cares about weed. Nobody cares about weed
except for the New York Football Giants when you didn't take Laramie Tunsil because he had that photo of him with the gas mask on. So we didn't have a stud left tackle for all those years.
It's one thing to smoke weed. It's another thing to put on a gas mask and just put on video right before you're going to get drafted. Like that's just a poor decision on his part. It doesn't change whether he's a good player or not. It's just like.
I think he got sabotaged. I don't think he was doing that the night before the draft. I think someone held that video and they leaked it.
And by the way, as my father has always said, if you're going to do something, you do it right. And that's all that I saw from Laramie Tunsil. He's a guy who was committed to,
He was going in. He said, all right, I'm not going to smoke a J. Give me the mask.
I'm not half-hearting this thing.
He's a big dude. He can't just rip a little baddie. He can't just hit the bowl.
Right, relative. Yeah.
They got this guy pushing cars. Yeah. I like this kid. He's an athlete.
Smoking a J, this might be confused. Let me just put on a gas mask and let everybody know exactly what I'm trying to get accomplished here. You know?
I mean, I'm sure he's fine with it. Wait, he got drafted by the Dolphins and then they traded him last year.
Yeah, to Houston.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, I mean, I'm sure he's fine with where, he ended up.
And they're now trying to make him the highest paid left tackle in.
He's good. Came out of Ole Miss and everybody was raving about him, like saying that he's one of the best offensive line, tackles, whatever, to come out in a while. And then that thing happened what year was that? Like 2017, 2016? Like that happened. And that was that's probably one of the last times we'll see that. Like people try to sabotage these guys' careers or their draft nights. But I don't think that's valid anymore. Like, unless you got something really damning on someone or one of these kids, which like now, like these guys get their Instagrams, their Twitters scrubbed. They have agents and people that are looking at every single thing on them before they get drafted, before they're even stepping in the combine.
And now, with the 12th pick,
Don Gruden, Mike Mayock. I don't know. I want them to take a receiver. I want them to take Henry Ruggs the third.
Henry Ruggs, the speedster. Like it just
they do. All right.
Wait, the pick is in?
It's Ruggs.
They took Ruggs. Have to. Absolutely had to. Right? No Antonio Brown. They got to get past that whole fiasco. They were looking for a player like that. Speed guy, run that deep post. And like Ruggs isn't just a speed guy, deep post. Like he can run routes.
But I mean, listen, Adam and I talked on our podcast about I had Ruggs on the do not draft list for the Giants, even if he like started to fall to the Giants late first round, they want to trade up. Like he's another one of those speedster guys. When you have CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy, and even Justin Jefferson sitting on the board, guys that like I think are going to be Pro Bowl type players, they just go with Henry Ruggs and they go with the speedster, and it's just such a Raiders thing to do. It is like. They just draft the fastest guy in the draft, right?
Yeah, they don't care. They don't care about what they're doing. They look at that one number and they go for it. But I mean, listen, you do want to have that weapon for you, and I guess arguably now the question you ask yourself is where do they stand on their quarterback situation and how are you going to look going forward in that scenario? Because I think that's the other part of it. When you get to a certain phase of your team's evolution, like listen, they played better this past year than people anticipated, right? So if you believe in Derek Carr. Now you're giving them the weapon, and you're saying we think that we can take that next step. And an accomplishment for the Raiders, their first year in Vegas, is going to be being in the playoffs, right? Like that's what the goal is for them. Make the playoffs the next couple of years. Probably draft a quarterback at some point to take over for Carr eventually. But right now you're thinking, let's capitalize on new location, new stadium, want some flash. And we do, and legitimately, we do need a receiver for Carr to throw to. So, you've accomplished a lot of things heading into your new stadium, into the Death Star in Vegas, by the way.
Yeah, I love the way that stadium looks on the outside. And watch, like I said, that first receiver is gone. Now we might even see some trades because whoever loves Jerry Jeudy, whoever loves CeeDee Lamb, you better go get him. Tampa Bay right now, this pick could be a receiver, and Tampa Bay. If they want to get greedy, if they want to get really ridiculous and give Tom Brady all the weapons.
Well, now, but I would have said too is that a guy like Ruggs would have been, if not at that selection for them, but a speedster receiver for them in the slot would be, like that potentially is what they would like to have to complete that roster. The only thing I would have thought for them was like, they could also be sitting there and saying, if Tristan Wirfs is sitting here for us, that's a nice way to potentially all the line that. Where he's although on the left side, and again, Wirfs is a guy that you're not necessarily talking about being able to pivot over there, as he famously just recently came out and said, I'm more comfortable on the right, and then tried to back it up. And he's like, no, I can go on the left side too, though. It's just switching hands. So I don't know where Tampa Bay is going to be interesting when they get on the board. Do you assume they would go defense, Andy, or I mean, like, is offense reasonable for Tampa Bay?
They might take the next tackle, maybe the kid out of Iowa. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's only one offensive weapon that the Tampa Bay would pick, and that's taking Wirfs if he's still available. I think the way I'm looking at the board and the way it's slowly starting to play out is that San Francisco at 13 is interesting. They could go Jerry Jeudy. They could go CeeDee Lamb if they want to pair Deebo Samuel with someone. They just lost Emmanuel Sanders. They're trying to trade Marquise Goodwin. They're trying to set up what their offense is going to look like. I could very easily see someone like CeeDee Lamb going here. And then when
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then when you look at Tampa Bay, I totally see them going defensive side of the ball. Maybe they could go offensive line if they want to get Brady more protection, but I see them starting to look in that, Clavon Chason range, some of those players on the defensive side of the ball. Even Kinlaw on the defensive line would be a good pick for Tampa Bay. So, Denver at 15 is right behind them, and they're saying they're desperate to pair Cortland Sutton up with another superstar. So in the next 3 picks, I could see Lamb and Judy both go. Like, Keith was right. There could be a run very quickly on some wide receivers here. I just don't think Tampa Bay's in the mix for an offensive player.
I'd be curious. I think they would have loved to have seen Becton fall to 14, right? That would have been a really nice pick for them there at 14. I just wonder about Wirfs from an organizational standpoint about how flexible teams think that he is in order to be able to move into the best position on the line for you. So it'll be interesting as San Francisco starts to come on the board. By the way, I looked that up there. We were talking about Laramie Tunsil before, and this is why having a guy like my friend Mike with that draft knowledge, but
Eli Apple. That
was the 2016 season. That's where we got scared off from him because of that incident, and we went with Eli Apple at 10, and then he went a few picks later to the Miami Dolphins. So he was right there for the Giants to take. And listen, at the time, I thought I didn't care about what he was up to, but I knew that at the time, with the way the NFL was constructed, it was going to cost him in some way. It's really just more about that the Giants didn't go with him, and then also made just an egregious selection by choosing to take a cornerback who arguably as well was not rated as the 10th best player or near it in the draft.
So Adam, breaking news.
Oh, trade alert.
Yep, 49ers just traded.
As they said they were going to want to.
Tampa Bay Bucks, but we don't know the compensation yet. But the Bucks had the
jump up a spot.
Like what? Like maybe
I would want to know if Oh no, and look, and Tampa Bay's still going to be on the clock at 14 as of right now, so they didn't drop back just one spot. They're setting themselves up for back-to-back selections potentially here.
So if that's the case, then clearly Tampa loves tackle to shore up the line, and then they love a defensive player. Like there's no other scenario that it could literally.
All right. I can't put I can't make predictions here. As we welcome Keith back in, we'll let you know, Keith. Tampa Bay just traded up with San Francisco.
The Bucks know who they want, and it might be like I'm saying, it might be if they get ridiculous right here and decide they want Jerry Jeudy.
Keith wants it. This is good here because Andy couldn't be more strongly against the idea of a wide receiver these next 2 picks for the Bucks, and Keith couldn't be more enthusiastic.
We were talking about it on we did a mock, and I was like, yo, they could just get ridiculous and say, okay, we're gonna give Brady all the weapons, and we're gonna take one of the top receivers this year. They should try and shore up that O-line because he's 45, but
you may want to protect that 45.
If they're making this trade to just jump one, it's because they have one guy that they're like, we want him. You guys don't want him. Okay, trade us this spot.
Well, Andy, now here's the reason why wide receiver technically would make sense here, because if you think about San Francisco, you just said they'd be in the market for a wide receiver to pair. Why would Tampa Bay need to jump? San Francisco doesn't need offensive line help. So why would they want to go up to where San Francisco is just to get a player that they can get in one pick anyway?
Wait, I didn't get the details. They don't have back-to-back picks, right? This is a glitch. I thought they were just swapping.
So they officially swapped, yeah.
Okay. Right now, ESPN is showing 13 Tampa Bay, 14 Tampa Bay.
No, they flip picks, but they haven't told us yet what the compensation was to flip it.
Right.
Listen, if I had to guess right now, my answer is that it's Tristan Wirfs.
I mean, the first, yeah.
And Tampa Bay's like, we want to protect Tom Brady because we have this amazing offense around him. Let's get the best offensive tackle that we think. If they had to give up a third or fourth round pick or whatever, they don't care. Protect Tom Brady, and he's got all that on offense.
Bruce Arians chilling. Before I walked away, I said, if they're not taking a receiver, they got to take the kid out of Iowa. And
it's just so interesting. Like, I guess if San Francisco would have considered taking Wirfs there, you know what I mean? Like, it's just weird. Like, why do you have to jump? Why do you have to swap?
San Fran might have wanted him because there was a lot of talk about Staley. Joe Staley is coming to the end of the road, and
that's true.
That might have been the conversation. Like, we shall see. Pick is in. Are these notifications coming in faster?
Not that I've seen. I mean, ESPN has been on it.
Man, a lot of people in the military like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If the screen's any indication, these guys love the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Boo, Goodell, boo.
All right, so you got Tampa Bay, you got San Francisco, Denver. Who comes up just before Dallas does? That's 16.
I'm not sure of the order at all, to be honest.
Oh, Atlanta. Atlanta will come up at 16 before you guys.
The Bucks, 8.
There you go.
And Wirfs.
Yep.
There it is.
I would have been so. I thought for when they said that when they sat there for a minute and thought they had 13 and 14.
I don't understand. I didn't make more money.
That was interesting. Like when I thought they were sitting there at 13 and 14, I was so confused by it.
600. You put like $3 on it. Should have put $20 on it and then paid.
So the question is then, like, are they going to swing him around to the left side?
We will find out in camp.
Yeah, because they don't have a left. Humphreys left in free agency.
To watch the Pats pick.
San Francisco might have just picked up a pick by doing nothing, which is incredible.
Now I'm like, now I want the Cowboys to not go defense. Here we go. Now I'm like, okay, we're getting closer where if the Cowboys take Jerry
He's
Jeudy,
getting tantalized with wide receivers looming.
we could get Jeudy or Lamb.
Just pair him up with Cooper and say,
this is what I'm saying. Like the Raiders did what I needed them to do. They took Ruggs, and now the rest of the receivers are about to come off soon.
Well, Andy, you were saying, right? Denver will be in a position. San Francisco right now is in a position to take a wide receiver. Atlanta's in good shape from a wide receiver perspective, but at least if you get a couple of them coming off right now. As they highlight Wirfs working out at the local pool. Oh, my God. He jumped clean out of neck-deep pool onto the side. That's impressive.
I mean, Adam, we've talked about this before. Tristan Wirfs is a freak of nature, and watching his film, like I fell in love with this guy. But then when we did, hours and hours of actual film study, like Andrew Thomas as the offensive tackle of Georgia just blew him away off the screen because he was challenged by the best edge rushers that you could possibly get because that's who rushes from the blind side. And, like, he handled Chase Song from LSU consistently. If you watch that film, it's kind of crazy. And I love Chase Song. Like, I think he's a great player from LSU. Would love him to be on the Giants. But, I mean, Wirfs is a great player. He's going in the top 15, kind of where I expected him to go. Now San Francisco just traded back. They could still get the same player that they wanted. They weren't in the mix for an offensive tackle.
It's so interesting, yeah. They did a great job at least teasing Tampa Bay that we might go worse. You better give me a third. You better give me something just to make this dance happen. No, right. You know what? Isn't it interesting?
In second and the fourth, so like and this is a huge move.
It's interesting to think about the fact that go back right pre-draft and all that stuff. Basically, I think for the most part, the tackles kind of came off the board the way you thought they should have, up until that combine when Wirfs shows that freakish athleticism and he starts to get into the mix. But a guy that they talked about kicking into a guard position shouldn't come off the board before 3 starting tackles, right?
Yeah, I mean, I still had Wirfs a little bit higher than Becton, but Becton has the upside, and so I get why you would want to draft him. Now, we're starting to get into an interesting part, especially for Keith, obviously with Dallas pick coming up. But you have San Francisco, who does need a wide receiver. You have Denver, who desperately needs a wide receiver to pair with Courtland Sutton. Wide receiver isn't necessarily a need for the Cowboys, but if Jerry's locked in his home and he's rubbing his hands together and he sees one of these guys from Alabama or Oklahoma available, you got to believe that Jerry is thinking about it.
We need a third guy. It's Cooper Kupp, or not Cooper Kupp. It's Amari Cooper and Gallup. If one of these rare receivers, like, honestly, a lot of people think Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb are better receivers than Henry Ruggs Jr.
Me too.
And especially if we're thinking Dak is going to hold out, Like, yo, put the horses in the stable. Like,
And by the way, in that division, unfortunately, it's the Giants division, but in the NFC East right now, that's open. That's wide open for you. If you got the offense, to run right now, Philadelphia's got some rebuilding to do in their wide receiver core themselves.
You play keep away. Philly wants to trade up and try and get a receiver. This is about to get interesting right now. I'm glad Ruggs is off, and I'm glad that we're in this space where we know these teams could all use a receiver. San Francisco could take a receiver right now. The Broncos could take a receiver. Dallas could take a receiver. But I think if we see two receivers go, obviously if it's Judy and it's Lamb, then the Cowboys have to go Kinlaw. I think Kinlaw is still out there.
Yeah.
So available. So Keith, you're not that high on Justin Jefferson then. You feel like that would just be a little bit of a reach?
I don't think the Cowboys would use the 17th pick for a Justin Jefferson with a Kinlaw out there. No, but I think the Cowboys would use the pick on a Jerry Jeudy or a CeeDee Lamb and pass on Kinlaw. But if those two guys get taken,
are you talking about the Cowboys? Or are you talking about Jerry with a cocktail by himself? Like, what are we talking?
It's one and the same.
It's all the Cowboys.
It's all Jerry world.
I wish that any of these GMs, by the way, but I would love to have seen the film on Jerry Jones, and it's just him on the star in the middle of the stadium. You know what I mean? They just set up on the field in the middle of it all. Like, this is where it happens. And he's watching on his own Jumbotron just overhead as everything comes off the board.
That would have been a great visual. They should have just set something like that up for laughs, like Jerry watching on that huge screen. That screen is ridiculous. I've been to the Jerry world, and I remember going there and seeing the screen, and I'm like, there's no reason to have the screen like this. But the reason is they sell so much standing room only tickets that with the standing room only, you can look up and watch the game on that screen from anywhere. And they sell those tickets. They start at like $25 and they sell that place out.
But Keith, that's the practical answer. The real answer is Jerry just wanted
Jerry just wanted the biggest TV in the world, the biggest. And then I think one of the punters like purposely was trying to hit it and then it just made it look even dumber. It's like, this isn't even regulation.
The second that kick hit that, I was like, see, this isn't right. You can't build stadiums like this, guys.
No need for all of this.
I mean, also Jerry just gets the aura of the stadium. They ask why he cuts out the center of the roof, and it's like so God can watch his favorite team play. You know what I mean? Like that is Jerry Jones to a T. Like so for me, when they're like, he's like, what's the biggest TV screen in all of He's like, all right, I need it at least 3 times bigger than that. Whatever that is, like, make it bigger. But you're right. Like, him sitting at the Star with, like, a bunch of flat screens, watching it on the big screen would have been, like, the most Jerry World thing of all.
They could have made a commercial for this draft doing that. That would have been hilarious.
That would have been great.
Showing Jerry Jeudy, showing CeeDee Lamb. The pick is in.
Come on, Niners. Don't take a receiver.
I say no. That's what I was asking you.
They should take Kinlaw for their D-line, make their D-line even more ridiculous.
You want the wide receivers to be on the board for the Cowboys. It sounds like you kind of sneakily want Judy.
I'm an offensive guy. I want to see fireworks. I want to see us run it up, man.
Because, by the way, there's a chance here that both your guys come off the board, and then you're just sitting there with none of the wide receivers that you want to take in the
but we drafted D lineman last year. We have DeMarcus Lawrence. We signed Gerald McCoy. We signed Dontari Poe. So, like, why did we do that if, like, we already have the hot boys defensive line? I don't know if we're going to use this pick on a D lineman. If one of these receivers are available, we're taking them, and then we'll address the defense later on. There's linebackers.
Javon Kinlaw.
Kinlaw just went to them, right?
Just went off. Wow. Dude, talk about good. But
that's a ridiculous defensive line.
I was going to say good for Keith. Keep some wide receivers out there. But if you look at the San Francisco 49ers, right? Like, they didn't say we're an offensive piece away from having been able to win that Super Bowl. They're like, nope. We're going to take our strength and we're going to make it even stronger.
We're going to have the best defensive line in the league by far. It's not even close. It's not even close. You put that kid in that D line, it's not even close.
Well, they're basically telling Garoppolo, like, again, we were like, don't lose the game and we'll win the Super Bowl because we're that stacked. Like they traded Bruckner and they get Kinlaw in and they shed, $10 million of salary. Like that's a coup for the 49ers. And they have another pick in the first round.
Well, and they got back end. Yeah, they can go back. I assume though, like I have to assume they're fielding every offer at 31 though.
Why Tampa would do that?
Because Tampa's worried about someone jumping up.
Oh, someone trading.
Let's go.
Got Denver at 15 on the board right now. 2 picks away before Dallas gets on the clock.
So Keith, you got 2 picks. Take picks till Dallas. Who is your guy that you want right now? Is it Lamb? Is it Judy? I
think it's Jerry Jeudy, man.
Because one of the two will be there, right?
One of the two will be there.
Atlanta's not going wide receiver.
I think Denver. I don't know. Denver could take him. I rather it be Jerry Jeudy. But I wouldn't be mad at CeeDee Lamb either. That guy is showtime. He got it done with Jalen Hurts last year. He had big plays. He went off, so he can do it. I don't know. I'm looking at my Twitter. I got some Dallas people. I'm so anxious right now. Oh my God, bro! Like they took Kinlaw. I'm like, I didn't want Kinlaw anyway. Like I just was saying, like the Niners should take Kinlaw, and they did. And we don't need him. We got D lineman.
Jerry Jeudy at 17 would be a steal, and I would be very angry about it.
We're going to steal Jerry Jeudy at 17, and Mac's going to say, whatever, I'll take the 35 mil.
Done. I'll stay here.
You know how easy? Oh, man. Like, for Dak to come in and look to his right and have Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy on his left, Michael Gallup behind him, Zeke Elliott, with a Pro Bowl offensive line, like, come on, man.
Yeah.
I played a little quarterback in my day. I can hand the ball off and throw a couple check downs and quick game routes to these guys.
I'm putting in a call. I'm sending a letter to Jerry.
If you need a guy, Jerry, I can stand in.
I have a much more reasonable contract demand than Dak Prescott's 35 mil.
You say you have what?
I have a much more reasonable contract demand than Dak Prescott. You know what I mean?
But now, watch, the Cowboys are going to take like Jalen Hurts in the 3rd round, and then it's like, well, could you imagine we get CeeDee Lamb and then we take Jalen Hurts in a couple rounds, and then it's like, this guy's reunited with his college guy, and you put him with a line and you put him with weapons, like anybody can do it.
Got 4 years of him under a reasonable contract. Enjoy yourself, Dak Prescott, on the open market.
It could get tricky.
Keith, it's funny that you say that because I was talking to Adam. One thing I'm convinced about is the Patriots aren't taking a quarterback in the 1st round.
Yeah,
they are going to do everything in their power to get Jalen Hurts in the late 2nd round. Like, isn't Jalen Hurts the perfect New England Patriot where it's like he doesn't really want to be involved with the media? You see him now; he works hard. He's
Saban Belichick connection.
Oh,
they draft players out of Alabama. They come in there and they know the Patriot way after going the Saban way. So,
like, couldn't you see Jalen Hurts as the next guy that like runs the Patriots for 10 years? Like, I'm totally in on.
I would love it.
Plus, they just did that special too, right? With Nick Saban. Did Nick Saban sit down with Belichick and just talk ball for a while?
I mean, of course he did. Like, that's exactly how all this goes down. Like, Tua is kind of the brass, like, showman, can throw the ball a million, like, whatever, and that's why he won out against Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is like the lunch pail guy that like wants to work hard and do work. Are you telling me that Belichick is not looking at him being like, I could get this guy late 2nd, early 3rd, and he could be my quarterback for 10 years? Like that.
Yeah, and he can throw the ball. People think that he can't throw the ball. He actually got better in the last year going to Oklahoma and being in that system. I think he can throw better than Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I do. I think the same thing.
Pick is in from Denver,
and that's what makes me angry. You know,
he would have a horrible career unless he goes to the Patriots. Well, John Elway's relaxed. He doesn't have any worries.
Yeah, what receiver are they taking?
I think they go Jerry Jeudy. The pick is in.
Commercial.
Here we go. You want the inside scoop? Andy Mack's got it fast here. The Wi-Fi is working quick.
Yeah, what is this? I don't understand why. You know what I mean? We got this 4-second head start on us.
Pick is Jerry Jeudy, the
Okay.
wide receiver from Alabama.
All right, so now you have Atlanta between you and CeeDee Lamb to Dallas. Are you lock in CeeDee Lamb? Because if Dallas goes somewhere else, if Dallas goes Clavon Chase on, at LSU,
I like him. I like
yeah.
CeeDee Lamb. I think he's a playmaker. Oklahoma ain't far from Texas. But I don't know how the Cowboys graded him. The Cowboys might be really high on a safety like McKinney.
I was gonna say, like, let's put it that way. Would you rather have McKinney or CeeDee Lamb at 17?
We I don't know. I think I honestly think we can get a good safety in the second round.
Yeah, believe me, it's why Andy and I talked about where like Del Pitt sometimes can maybe fall to top of the second round, and I still say
Antoine Winfield. I mean, he probably won't fall to us in the second round, but when you look at it, I'm like talented, sure, but I feel like I can get a safety at some point. That's why I keep making that case for the Giants to go for Claypool at the top of the second round, knowing that you're reaching by 15 picks maybe or 20 picks. But I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like I can get a safety somewhere else. If I can get this kind of receiver talent, like I want to lock that in as soon as possible.
So
let's see now,
gentlemen, we're talking about the Atlanta Falcons right now, going off at 16. Now, there's a lot of talk about them trading up early to try to get one of the cornerbacks, and Henderson went, and obviously Okudah went. There's not as many, there's Terrell, there's a couple of different options. Where do you guys think the Falcons go here?
They need defense. They need who's the best defensive player available right now? They might take Xavier McKinney. They might take
Jason from LSU,
or they could take Kavon Chason. They could take.
This is all that range of Gross Matos and Chason and even McKinney in there.
What a Murray from
Kenneth Murray can be on the board there at linebacker. Like this honestly is that range where if you're like Keith and you want your team to go wide receiver, you want to get that weapon, that's great. And even a team like Denver, I get wanting to get that extra receiver to pair with him, but you're talking about now everybody that's in this 16, 17, 20, like now you're starting to get tremendous defensive value now. Because you've seen outside of cornerback where those two players came off super early and Henderson threw a wrinkle in that, I think. But other than that, the offensive linemen have gone. Now some wide receivers. Like, this is incredible value. By the time, say, a team like Jacksonville gets on the board at 20, they could have a chance to double down.
Miami right behind us is going to get someone great. And it doesn't matter where they go. There's a lot of talent left on the defensive side of the ball. We haven't seen a linebacker come off. We haven't seen a safety come off. Well, Simmons was the first linebacker. But no middle linebackers. I don't know. This is where it gets interesting. It depends. Let's see what Atlanta does, and then once Dallas makes. I mean, Dallas is going to make noise. They're going to make a splash. Jerry's going to look at it and he's going to punch a ticket for somebody like a CeeDee Lamb and try and make some noise, or a Xavier McKinney out of Alabama too. I think it's between guys like that.
Well, Keith, what is the most uninspiring pick the Cowboys? Like they step up and they make that, and you're like, is Jerry alive? Like, did anyone check Jerry's pulse? Like, how did that happen?
If they get a D tackle or like a
if they reach for that second group of offensive,
because we have linebackers, we have linebackers. We have Sean Lee, we have Leighton Vander Esch, and we have Jalen Smith. So we don't really need to get the kid Patrick Queen that they were talking about. Edge rusher, I understand. So like, don't be surprised if they do go LSU with the kid Chason. I don't know. I'm fine with it. Like, I feel great right now. I feel like no matter what we do, like we could make that like splash and flex on everybody by getting CeeDee Lamb if he's there. But if we go Xavier McKinney, that's a guy that could be your safety for the next 10 years and be a Pro Bowler. So I'd like to see that. It depends on who they're high on.
Well, I've always said too, like when you're at the top of the draft, like the Giants were this year and last couple of years, like there's so much pressure to make the right move, whether it's a trade down or locking yourself into a pick, right? Like there's a ton of pressure there. When you get back into the middle of the first round, like in and around where Dallas is, there's a beauty of just being able to, like, I'm just gonna let the board come to me, and I'm gonna have a lot of options, and it's gonna be hard for me to make a bad choice at 15, 16, 17, no matter where I go, if you choose to go CeeDee Lamb, okay, it's a high-powered offensive weapon. If you go defensive tackle or linebacker, we're bolstering our defense. So, and usually when you're a team in the middle of the first round, you're also a team that's pretty good already. So you're only helping areas. You're never desperate for a need.
So
For sure.
pick is in, and we're waiting for Roger to come out and tell us what it is. But the Falcons have made their pick. There's no trades, and they're coming up.
By the way, best available on Mel Kiper's board, it goes CeeDee Lamb, Xavier McKinney, Justin Jefferson, or his top 3.
Yeah, I don't want Justin Jefferson. So if they take McKinney, we're taking Lamb.
And then Chase on is the 4th best available currently.
And maybe Chase on if someone is telling Jerry Jones like we need to go defense, then it's Chasen.
To try to get me excited again, Andy, is there any chance that the Giants are thinking about doing anything at the back end of this first round? Maybe dipping their toe in the water?
The Giants are just so far away from competing that like trade back into the first round and give up a bunch of assets doesn't make much sense to me. Like I can't find a scenario where there's a guy in the late 20s that the Giants are like, he's the guy that gets us to the playoffs. He's the guy that wins us the NFC East. So for me, Adam, as much as I want to believe that, I think the Giants actually need to trade back in the second round more than they need to trade up back into the first.
And maybe outside of that, as we had highlighted it in our pre-draft coverage, some opportunity for the Evan Ingram scenario to play out potentially with San Francisco, the 31 plus an asset to move Ingram to San Francisco and get back into the first round. That's the kind of scenario I don't mind. Where, like to your point, we don't leave the top of the second round. Where I'd rather see us trade back a little bit. Yeah. Here, just a real quick, sorry, Andy. CeeDee Lamb is the 12th rated overall on the big board, so also value coming up there, just in terms of where these players are ranked on the board as well.
Oh, as a Giants fan, I would not be happy if CeeDee Lamb ends up with the Cowboys. Like, embarrassment of riches. It's like. But what's funny, and Keith can weigh in on this if he wants, it's like, so you give him Amari Cooper, he's got Ezekiel Elliott, you give him CeeDee Lamb, you still haven't paid him long-term yet. It's like, how many ridiculously good options are you going to give this guy? Like, he's not going to all of a sudden falter if you give him consistently better weapons. So, like, at some point, you got to bite the bullet and pay him the $36 to $38 million a year,
But if that's your plan, though, ultimately with him, then it's okay to draft him the wide receiver, right? Like if it's still in the big picture plans for Dallas to give it to him, then they don't care about surrounding him with the weapons. It's probably only if you think, are we painting ourselves into a corner by making him this much better with what we surround him with?
I mean, I think they're gonna pay Dak. I'm all for paying Dak. I just don't want to overpay Dak, and I think they're figuring out how to structure this contract. And let's see, the Falcons pick is in.
AJ Terrell.
Terrell, the cornerback from Clemson, and it makes too much sense. They were trying to trade up for Buda. They were trying to create up for Henderson. They couldn't make it happen. The Atlanta Falcons were ranked the worst team in the league at the cornerback play last year. So like it's a no-brainer for them to trade up and get Terrell.
As Keith mentioned earlier about the hometown connections, hometown of Atlanta, Georgia for AJ Terrell as well. So guy gets to go back and play at home. So a nice connection there, and they do a decent job.
And here we sit.
Here we sit, man. It's just Jerry looking at the big board. Every option in the world. So literally anything that the Dallas Cowboys fans could want is available to them right now. It's just there. It's pick your poison. You want to get even better on offense? Do you want to add an asset on defense? Two, I think, Andy, from our perspective as Giants fans, are we of the mindset that we would rather them go with an offensive weapon and deal with the fact that they're going to be a high-powered offense, or risk them taking a defensive asset that potentially is going to be trying to hunt down our quarterback?
I would rather them take a defensive asset because we just don't know where they get buried in the depth chart, scheme, all that different stuff. If you throw CeeDee Lamb to the Cowboys, that worries me. Like that's another weapon. And while we do have Bradbury and we do have Baker, We don't match.
Those aren't the two. Those two names don't necessarily inspire confidence going up against Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb with Zeke Elliott in the back.
Exactly. Oh, and they have video on Jerry. They got the Jerry video.
Where do you? I'm watching ESPN. I don't see shit.
There we go.
It's coming. Oh, it's coming.
Jerry has no pen. Oh, he has a pen in his hand. I'm sorry. I don't see a lot of paperwork in front of him. He doesn't have a ton of it. No computer.
Jerry's telling people what to do. Like, that's what Jerry does. He's like, yo, go make that happen, whatever that is. It's guy I want. Like, CeeDee Lamb's available. Okay, he's our pick. Do I write it in? Do I call somebody? Like, what do I do? Someone go figure it out.
Teams without a conference championship appearance since '96. Cowboys. That is so weird, man. You are in there with some terrible company for a team that has had some pretty even and successful seasons. You're in there with the Browns and with the Redskins and some other real garbage franchises. You guys got to right this ship. I mean, right the ship as in lose to us, in the division or whatever it takes. But, right your ship over there.
If Dallas goes defensive side of the ball and Miami's sitting there and they get CeeDee Lamb and Tua after their offseason, that's kind of insane. Like,
that's what I was saying. Miami's going to win. There's Jerry. I see Jerry now.
Wow.
But, I mean, and I tweeted somebody. I was like, take McKinney. I'd be fine. If we go defense, I want a safety. But I got a feeling right now we might just go chasing. We might just play it safe, get a pass rusher. And then I'd be kind of disappointed. But the splash is to take CeeDee Lamb. The need is to take McKinney. We'll see right now. I think Jerry wants to make a splash, though. And then if he takes CD, like Miami's got to take CD at 18. Like they got another pick later. Like,
right, and they can go ahead and target one of those second tier of offensive linemen at the back end of the first round. Get a left tackle, you get your quarterback, you get a weapon. Put that little package together for you on the field.
I mean, think about it. They walk away with Tua and CeeDee Lamb in their first two picks. Like
the value there, to turn the franchise around, like for the future of the franchise. Yeah.
Talk about that division, right? From a competition standpoint, we know they were.
They cap space with great players like Joe and other people. Like it's like the Dolphins in these next 3 or 4 picks could be the favorite over the Bills to win the AFC East. Like, that's how crazy this could get.
I mean, and then the Raiders are right behind the Dolphins with their second pick. They probably could have waited. Like, could you imagine CeeDee Lamb is on the board when they come up, and then it's like, well, they took Ruggs at 11.
Yeah, that'd be some real salt in a wound there for Vegas if they see CeeDee Lamb sitting at 19 and they took Ruggs at 12. And you go back and think about who you could have had. You could have taken if you want to have worse on your team instead of the Tampa Bay. If you want to go defensive side of the ball, there you had a lot of options.
Go for it.
I told Adam multiple times that like Ruggs is a great player, of course, but like he's one of those guys that just runs well at the combine, has that 4.29 speed, and everyone's like, I want that guy, and they forget that there's like amazing route runners and amazing like decision tree guys like Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb that like, can high point the ball, that can go get the ball, like do all the things that wide receivers need to do to like actually be a good wide receiver. And so for me, I was like, the one wide receiver I don't want the Giants to go near is Ruggs. That's the one guy, and he's the first one to go off the board. It's just so fun.
And it fits the Raiders to take the fastest guy, but I think he's got a little bit of potential to. Okay, they're already cheering like the pick is like they know who we're taking here.
Oh, Jerry's fired up. Jerry's fired up. That can only mean good things.
He's giggling. He's got the giggles on the couch.
We can't mess this pick up. Is that CeeDee Lamb?
They showed him. Yeah, they were just showing him. They're
showing CeeDee Lamb.
Showing CeeDee Lamb. He's in there, in that echelon in terms of the value selection.
This is probably ESPN production playing games. They're going to show CeeDee Lamb, and then the Cowboys are not going to take CeeDee Lamb.
Keith's about to leave the screen, and he just doesn't want to get to it.
Nah, because I understand what happens if you take CeeDee Lamb and put him in this offense.
Now, Keith, do you want me to give it to you right now? Because it's about to. I'm looking at Roger Goodell right now.
No, don't
let him see.
I'm watching Mike McCarthy right now.
Let it go. Let
The
it go.
pick is in. Jerry's on the phone talking to somebody.
Oh boy, Keith, we're leaving it for you.
Why would they take a linebacker?
Oh!
I just heard. So they took Queen. Who'd they take? Chasen?
Watch, Keith. Watch.
Did they took a linebacker, and I just said we don't need linebackers.
Let it come up for you. Let it come up for you.
It's probably someone I don't even know. That's gonna be deflating. It's got to be somebody that McCarthy was in love with, convinced Jerry Jones. I don't even know. We weren't really looking at linebackers outside of the Patrick Queen kid from LSU, and
It's so exciting for me. I love that Andy was first. I saw it second. Now we're waiting for Keith to experience this. Two Giants fans lording
I'm already
over,
disappointed.
lording over knowledge.
Linebacker here with like star players available.
Oh, this is good.
And the pick for the Cowboys is
There you go.
Yes. Yo, let's go. Do you understand? That was great. I thought we took a linebacker. Bro, CeeDee Lamb, come on. What number is he going to wear? I'm going to get a CeeDee Lamb jersey.
oh.
Do you understand the firepower? Dak, you have to sign for whatever, dude. We need to start getting ready now.
Oh my God! Look at that replay. Wait. Oh God!
This
You're gonna
is
see one of the
amazing.
filthiest looking catches that.
Amazing.
Brother
This
in
is
the
amazing.
background knew that you
Amazing. Are you kidding me? Oh wow. Oh wow.
This is a weird experience for me because I've now been working with Keith for a couple of weeks here.
It's so lit. It's so lit.
I'm genuinely happy. I'm genuinely happy for Keith, and I'm like disgusted with myself. He's a Cowboys fan.
I knew it too. I said Oklahoma wasn't too far from Texas. You know, Jerry likes those guys. Man, he fell to us, and it's like, yeah, you have to take this guy. Wow, we're gonna run past everyone.
Oh
What a great pick.
It really is.
And now the rest of our draft gets interesting because we have ridiculous receivers. We have an offensive line. We have one of the best running backs in the league, if not the best. Who couldn't play quarterback in this system? Dak.
You look at it now, and this is where you get that beauty of the rest of your draft picks are padding out linebacker areas that you maybe want to supplement, edge rusher, even D line. Like now you get to kind of just test.
I am overjoyed. I'm thinking about how the rest of this will play out. We'll get a safety next round, but right now, everybody that has ever thought about playing quarterback wants to play quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, Keith, that is an interesting point that you're bringing up, and this is the question I have for you. And it's not to rain on the parade, but it's like, look at the embarrassment of riches the Dallas Cowboys have right now, and you look at Dak Prescott, who I do think is a good quarterback.
Yeah. If you put Cam Newton in this
you just released Dak Prescott tomorrow and you paid Cam $25 million instead of paying Dak $35 to $40 million. Like, how much?
And this is what I'm thinking. Like, with a move like this, when they go back to the negotiating table after this weekend, it's like, we just got one of the best weapons in the draft for you. Let's renegotiate now. This is you want to be a part of this, right? Well, this is our offer, and this is our final offer.
I can find a lot of quarterbacks that can handle these weapons quite nicely if you're not interested, Dak.
They could sign Cam to a 3-year, $90 million deal with only the first year guaranteed, and literally rescind the franchise tag from Dak and be like,
it's going to get interesting now. It depends. Now, and I think that's going to force Dak to just like be humble, man. Give Jerry a little hometown discount, man. You got the Sleep Number commercials. You got the Dannon commercials. You got all this other stuff. Like,
free yogurt, man. You got all the yogurt you want. What do you need that extra?
I love it. We paid Cooper this offseason before paying Dak, and people kind of, in the Cowboys world were questioning that. Nah, it makes perfect sense. Now it's like all the horses are in the stable. You want to rock and roll with this offense, Dak? Like, you're the guy, you're the leader, but we got to come to terms. We got to meet in the middle somewhere.
Keith, what jersey are you wearing right now?
I'm wearing the Dak jersey.
Oh, So like but that impacts it. You got like if that happens, you got to retire the Dak jersey and then pick up the Cam Newton jersey, the Jameis Winston jersey, like
The CD Lamb jersey, like
Lamb jersey.
that's fine. The
About to get a
Cowboys.
lot
It won't be the first Cowboys jersey I've retired or thrown in the garbage.
there's gonna be a lot of CD Lamb jersey wearing tweets going at Dak Prescott, being like, "There's somebody new in town right now. Better figure out where you are in the pecking order, there, Dak."
Hey,
Listen,
thanks for having me.
dude.
I gotta run. My phone's blowing up. My fiance is going to bed. It's about to be 10:30, but that was great. This is a draft I will remember forever. I was not expecting us to get CD Lamb. I was on a chat with some Jets fans, and they were talking about potentially like who do you think's better, CD Lamb? Like I'm like, you guys aren't taking a fucking receiver.
It's my guy. You guys aren't taking anybody.
No, I can't believe that's how this shook out. Like.
Hey, congratulations. Enjoy it tonight because I, as a Giant fan, I'm a little nervous about the
Yeah, you guys defense. You guys got to draft defense the rest of the way.
We are going defense the rest of the way. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy tonight. Appreciate
All
you.
right, guys. Thanks for having me. See you soon.
You could. All right, man. Well, there you go, dude. Seeing some things from the other side, right? It's not easy having a work partner, and dare I say, a friend who was a Giants fan and actually watching excitement and joy unfold before your eyes, right?
Well, look, that is a great move for the Cowboys. It's an exciting move. They do have other positions of need, but Jerry sees value and he's going to make a splash, and it does impact the negotiations with Dak. I legitimately do. It's like if you don't want this, there's 5 other quarterbacks that want this position. So if you think that you're worth $40 million, I could find 5 other guys that are about the same as you that are worth $25 million. Mm-hmm. And some of those guys are Cam Newton and Jameis Winston that have done more than you have. So it is interesting for the Cowboys. It's kind of funny because it's uninspiring towards the end for the Giants after they've picked where they've picked. But ultimately, as a Giant fan, you have to be happy with what.
Listen. By the way, we spent so much time getting excited about that as the Dolphins pick comes in their second of the first round here at 18 overall. We spent so much time dissecting some other picks as we wanted to do here. The New York Football Giants still did get their left tackle of choice there with Andrew Thomas at the top of the draft, so you feel great about that. Listen, we're in a good position. I feel good about what the Giants accomplished in the first round, and now it's going to be about for us what happens at the top of the second. Andy, if I go reasonable and if I go logical, man, you want to talk about spot by spot. I hate to be the bearer of potential bad news, and for myself as well, because I have my own interest in the second round for the Giants, but we could be staring down the Cesar Ruiz scenario at the top of the second.
You just want to get me angry right before we get out of here. And I just know how you do this to me. I know that it's clickbait, and I'm not going to take it this time. What I'm going to tell you is the Giants made a great move. Andrew Thomas is the guy that we wanted. We got him. I'm happy. And now we can address all the other positions of need. And
where's Miami going here?
Wow. Miami went Austin Jackson, the offensive tackle from USC.
Makes sense.
They clearly needed to do it. They addressed getting Tua, their quarterback. They took the offensive tackle that was the next best available. You can't hate on them for what they're doing. Now, think about the Giants. If they would have passed on taking an offensive tackle at 4, you're seeing the results. The offensive tackles are all going. Austin Jackson's going. Ezra Cleveland will likely go in the next.
Jones will be gone here. Yep.
Jones will be gone soon. So, it's a really good thing that the Giants didn't wait, thinking that they could get someone in the second round when you can see that there's a clear run on offensive tackle. So, I am very happy the Giants took Andrew Thomas. I'm very happy they also took an offensive tackle in general. And I think we're set up to at least have options at the top of the second round. And that's what we really want to do. You don't want to be pigeonholed to have to take somebody. I feel really good that we can take an edge, a safety, a wide receiver, and improve the team in any of those regards. So
Yep, and that's why we said it at the top. We said it all along here that addressing offensive line first at the top of the draft was going to make it easier to just assess the board and get value selections the rest of the way. It'll be interesting to see what goes on with the Giants tomorrow. Obviously, opportunities maybe to move around the board or trade back at the top of the second round. That'll do it for us here, friends. We did the long haul. 2.5 hours later, well, 3.5 hours later, we've covered the ground. Giants select Andrew Thomas, left tackle. You have your future starting left tackle there. A lot of other action happened. We'll, of course, come back in on the podcast and discuss things. We'll cover what happens in these next couple of rounds over the weekend as well. Our thanks once again to Keith McPherson for stopping in with us. Check him out on Talking Nets and all the platforms you can find him on. Andy Mackiewicz, Adam Armbrecht, shut it down.
Let's go, Big Blue.
Bang.